Chapter 38-31. In fact, even if the Realm Lord Golden Rat leading the way in front did not stop, Yi Xian would have to stop at this moment. At this point, he had already vaguely felt a murderous aura from the void. It was coming from the direction of the thick void in front of him. Based on his experience, this level of aura should belong to the primordial age, which was the level of the void ladle. It was still one level lower than the golden divine dragon and the void giant tortoise. Previously, in the netherworld furnace, Yi Xian had seen the remains of many primordial age beings. Therefore, he was quite familiar with this level of aura and could not be wrong. In other words, the primordial void rat on the superstar in front of him should be a primordial age mighty being, not a primordial age supreme being. As for which side it was on in the primordial age war, Yi Xian could not determine. The primordial void battlefield he saw in the inheritance picture was too vast. He did not even recognize all the primordial age supreme beings on both sides, let alone the primordial void rat that was one level lower. In the inheritance picture, Yi Xian did not see it at all. There was no related memory in his mind. According to his speculation, this primordial void rat either did not participate in the primordial age war and died of old age in the depths of the ancestral land's lair, or it was seriously injured in that battle and returned to the ancestral land's rat ruins grotto heaven to recuperate on the giant planet behind the thick void fog ahead. But in the end, it still died. Its injuries were too serious. But all this was not important. What was important was that the remains of the primordial void rat left behind was definitely a treasure to Yi Xian. Since he had come this time, he must find a way to harvest it and take it away. This was the fundamental reason why Yi Xian agreed to help the Realm Lord Golden Rat. Of course, Yi Xian would still share a bit of the precious blood and flesh that the other party needed. After all, the two of them were already allies, and he had obtained such a huge benefit for no reason. He had taken away the entire corpse of the clan's bloodline primordial ancestor, so when he ate the meat, he would at least get some soup. Give it to me. If this void rat was a supreme of the ancients, Yi Xian wouldn't be able to withstand the terrifying pressure emanating from its remains without the help of the headless infant corpse. After all, a supreme martial artist was a supreme martial artist, and a supreme martial artist from the mysterious primordial era. Even if he had fallen for countless years, he was still not someone Yi Xian could easily face. But the primordial era would not be a problem. Of course, he was still unable to enter by himself. Even if he wore the undying nirvana armor that had advanced into a starry sky treasure, it was still impossible because he would face the danger of his body exploding apart. However, if he summoned the Shinnon Cauldron and used its power to protect him, he should be able to barely do it. Although Yi Xian could not fully activate the power of the Shinnon Cauldron, it was only enough to protect him. He should be confident in being able to withstand the pressure of the remains of the primordial era. With a wave of his hand, Yi Xian summoned the Shinnon Cauldron. However, he didn't reveal its complete form because it was too huge. Moreover, the power of the cauldron would be divided and become thin. Therefore, when the giant cauldron was summoned, it was only 300 meters in size. Yi Xian stood at the mouth of the cauldron that was filled with 9-colored mist. His figure rose and fell within the dazzling 9-colored mist, faintly discernible. Sure enough, as soon as the 9-colored fog wrapped around his body, the cold pressure that he could faintly feel instantly disappeared. Yi Xian's heart calmed down. He turned around and nodded towards the Realm Master, the Golden Rat, not far away. Then, he activated the Shinnon Cauldron and charged towards the dense fog area in front of him. In the blink of an eye, he entered and disappeared. This cauldron is indeed extraordinary. If it wasn't refined by this brat, and I heard that the refinement method of a treasure cauldron is unknown, even a sector lord can't forcefully do it. Otherwise, I would have killed him and snatched this cauldron. It would be the same even if I entered the rat tomb myself. Seeing Yi Xian rely on the protection of the Shinnon Cauldron and safely enter the dense fog area in front of him, the eyes of the Realm Master Golden Rat, who was left outside, immediately burst out with an intense light of greed. He sighed and muttered to himself. In the end, he seemed to have thought of something. His originally dejected expression suddenly brightened up and his eyes burst out with light again, but it doesn't matter. As long as the legend is true, the the bloodline primordial ancestor in the rat tomb can be revived. At that time, there will be a primordial era almighty overseeing my space's rat clan, devil dweller, and mosquito. Even if old 2 and the mad mosquito emperor come to denounce me, what can they do to me? Now, I can only hope that this brat has a large amount of netherworld furnace lotion and 9-colored meat paste. Otherwise, even if the legend is true, moreover, the dark furnace lotion and the 9-colored meat paste that I sent into the bloodline primordial ancestor's body did work as a catalyst. It activated the remaining will to live in the bloodline primordial ancestor's body. However, we don't have enough treasures like this. I'm afraid it will be difficult for the bloodline primordial ancestor to fully awaken. There shouldn't be a problem. That brat must have a lot of stock. Otherwise, why would he be so generous and give me 1 cube each? This matter is safe. There shouldn't be any accidents. Now, the most important thing is to use my clan's secret technique to construct the sacrificial altar so that I can send the netherworld furnace lotion and 9-colored meat paste into the rat tomb, and it only has the effect of a medicine, throwing a brick to attract jade, so I don't need too much. I have to keep some for myself. Just 1 foot, no, half a foot will do. After saying that, the realm lord golden rat's figure flashed. In the blink of an eye, it scuttled into a rat hole in the void not far away and disappeared. He had to return to his cave abode before he could do anything. This was because everything was too important. There couldn't be the slightest mistake, the dense area. After entering this area, although Yi Xian was protected by the Shinong Cauldron's 9-colored fog, he didn't feel any pressure at all, let alone being harmed. Even so, he still couldn't see anything in this area. His naked eye's vision was only about 100 meters. When he extended his divine sense or spiritual power, it was at most 1,000 meters. Compared to the depth of the dense area, which was 50 kilometers away, it was simply insignificant. Fortunately, it was only 50 kilometers away. With the protection of the Shinong Cauldron's power, Yi Xian didn't dare to say that his speed was fast, but it wasn't too slow either. In less than a minute, he felt his vision suddenly widen. His divine sense and spiritual power were no longer restricted. He finally passed through the dense fog area. What appeared in front of him was the interior of a vast and boundless planet. The dense area just now was equivalent to the atmosphere of this superhuge planet. Even the atmosphere was hundreds of miles thick, so one could imagine how huge this star was. Even in the 3 universes of the outside world, such a huge star was probably not common. Chapter 38-32. This star, known as the Rat Mound, was desolate. Its main color was gray and gloomy. It was filled with a strong aura of decay. The vicissitudes of life were very intense. With one look, one could tell that no one had set foot on this star for countless years. On the surface of the planet, there were plains, towering mountains, and even dry oceans and rivers. However, at this moment, Yi Xian's gaze was focused on the remains of a giant rat. Everything else was ignored in this instant. This was indeed a giant rat. It was lying on a vast plain, but its back was actually taller than the mountains on both sides. It was at least 1,000,000 zhang tall. Its body length was even more terrifying. It was estimated to be close to 1,000,000 zhang long. The rat's corpse was like a small star. Its entire body was purple gold and exuded an incomparably noble aura. There was not a single strand of hair on it. At this moment, Yi Xian's figure was still enveloped and protected by the 9-colored fog at the mouth of the Shinong Cauldron, so he couldn't feel the slightest bit of pressure. However, according to his guess, if he didn't have the protection of the Shinong Cauldron, he would be so close to the remains of the primordial void rat. If he was close, he would have exploded and died. This primordial almighty void rat was just 10,000 li ahead. Although it had fallen for countless years, primordial almighty beings were extraordinary. Its precious body had not decayed, but it was a little thin. After countless years, the purple gold precious body of the void rat had lost some of its energy essence. However, there was still a part of its flesh that made Yi Xian very interested. Yi Xian had collected the precious bodies of primordial beings at the bottom of the volcano in the farmer god cauldron. The highest realm among them was only a sector lord level one-legged golden crow, and it was incomplete. However, what lay in front of him was the treasure body of a supreme being from the primordial era, and it was complete at that. This was absolutely rare, and even Yi Xian was excited. He immediately activated the Shinong cauldron and shot forward. During this process, Yi Xian spread out his divine sense and swept the area. When he arrived in front of the giant purple gold void rat, he still spent some time flying around it. His goal was to see if there were any treasures left behind. But in the end, he came up empty-handed. Yi Xian had expected this. From what he knew, these powerful creatures of the primordial age basically fought with their bloodline divine ability. Very few of them had Dharma treasures. But if there were, those magic treasures would definitely all be natural miraculous treasures, which were no small matter. Therefore, even though he knew that he might not find anything, Yi Xian still took a detour to investigate. If he was lucky and this purple gold void rat happened to belong to the kind of ancient almighty who had once obtained a natural wonder treasure, then he would have made a huge profit. Although he failed in this matter, Yi Xian was not disappointed. After all, this huge purple gold void rat in front of him was the best treasure. After he thought of a way to cut it up, he could slowly enjoy it. Not only could he enjoy the supreme delicacy, this kind of ancient almighty flesh and blood had a terrifying effect on the evolution of the body of a starry sky master. It was absolutely a flesh and blood medicine nurtured by heaven and earth. Although he was excited, Yi Xian did not forget the instructions of the golden mouse waiting outside. After all, he was the one who dug the well. Without that old guy to act as a bridge, Yi Xian would not have been able to enter the Space Rat clan's forbidden ground, the Rat Ruins Heaven Cave. He would have missed the opportunity in front of him. After summoning the withered demon blood blade, Yi Xian gave it a try. Although he could cut open the purple gold fur of this purple gold void rat, it was only a shallow cut. If he wanted to cut a large piece of meat, he estimated that he would have to wait for a very long time. It was like grinding water, which made him very anxious. In desperation, he could only summon a wisp of Shinong tricolor flame and condense it into the shape of a saber. The tricolor flame on the sharp edge did not disperse. With one slash, he easily cut off a large piece of meat, about half a zhang in size. Yi Xian hurriedly withdrew his hand, his face full of pain. This was the precious flesh of an ancient almighty purple gold void rat. Realm Lord Golden Mouse only needed to give him a little bit. Having to cut off such a large chunk, Yi Xian was very distressed. After putting away the saber condensed from the Shinong tricolor flame, Yi Xian directly used a small space box to store the half zhang in size of the rat's meat. With a flip of his hand, he put it into his body and muttered stingily, "Since you already gave me half a zhang in size, forget about the precious blood. This purple gold void rat, after all, it has been dead for countless years. There shouldn't be much precious blood left in its body. I'll collect it later and keep it for my own use." So it was decided. The reason for this was actually Yi Xian's consideration. Generally speaking, this kind of powerful ancient creature's bloodline inheritance was left in its body's life essence blood, such as heart blood and the like. Even the almighty of the primordial era, whose body was as large as a planet, did not have much life essence blood like heart blood. Hundreds or thousands of drops were at most. As for this purple gold void rat, it had been dead for countless years, and most of the ordinary blood in its body had probably dried up. The chances of the remaining blood containing life essence blood were too high, and if it accidentally gave a drop to the realm Lord Golden Rat, that old fellow would really be able to rely on that precious drop of life essence blood to obtain some kind of bloodline inheritance that belonged to this purple gold void rat. That was definitely not what Yi Xian wanted to see. Although they were allies, the space rat race was different from the demon race. On the surface, they were on the same side, but Yi Xian did not really treat them as one of his own, and the other party was even more so. At this time, Yi Xian was completely unaware that the realm Lord Golden Mouse, who had just become allies, had already begun to scheme against him the moment he left. Otherwise, Yi Xian would not even hand over this piece of rat meat that was only equivalent to the top-grade flesh and blood medicine. It was also at this moment that Yi Xian flipped his hand and put away the small spatial box that contained the 5-foot piece of top-grade void rat meat into his body. In another direction extremely far away from this huge planet, a faint golden light quietly burst forth and disappeared in a flash. Immediately after, a pot of netherworld furnace lotion and a handful of 9-colored meat paste suddenly appeared. They were all about half a foot square in size. Although the amount was very small, after all, this kind of thing was not small, and its level was extraordinary. Therefore, the moment the netherworld furnace lotion and the 9-colored meat paste appeared, the corpse of the purple gold void rat that was as large as a meteor trembled slightly as if it had sensed something. All of this was done by the realm Lord Golden Mouse. In fact, he had indeed succeeded. Chapter 38-33. Xiao. Xiao. Two sounds of breaking through the air rang out. From the distant void, a 9-colored object shot over like a meteor, but it was very small. In the blink of an eye, it arrived in front of the purple gold void rat and disappeared into the gap between its slightly opened mouth. It was clearly a lump of 9-colored meat paste and a drop of netherworld furnace lotion. Their sizes were not big, only half a square foot. Yi Xian's pupils shrank. He was so angry that he cursed on the spot. Bastard, shameless scoundrels are indeed unreliable. When he saw this small lump of 9-colored meat paste and netherworld furnace lotion, he understood everything. Although he still didn't know what the realm master, Gold Mouse, was scheming, this old fellow was playing some tricks behind his back and wanted to trick him. It was a nail in the board, a definite fact without a doubt. Presumably, this was the reason why the primordial purple gold void rat's precious body suddenly trembled. Fortunately, although this matter was strange, he did not see any danger for the time being. Yi Xian was indeed angry, but he was not flustered. He had already decided that the half-a-square-foot chunk of purple gold void rat's flesh that he had just cut off was not fated to be with the realm Lord Golden Rat outside. How dare you play tricks behind my back? Not to mention the rat's blood and flesh, I won't even give you a strand of rat hair. Yi Xian made a decision while secretly hating in his heart. He threw this matter to the back of his mind, and with a thought, he summoned the undying world within his body and let it float about 3 meters in front of him. Just now, when the primordial purple gold void rat's precious body trembled, the yen luo in Yi Xian's undying world also throbbed. This could not be a coincidence, there must be a connection. Yi Xian released the yen luo at this time to find out the reason. Master. Following the appearance of Yu Yen Luo, corpse ancestor Hanba's figure flashed as he rushed out of the treasure. He stood in front of Yi Xian, slightly bowed, and saluted him. Yi Xian suddenly felt uncomfortable. When the corpse ancestor drought demon was at its peak, its original body was in existence at the level of a supreme being from the primordial era. Although it was only a trace of its spiritual sense that had been left behind in Yen Luo to reconstruct its body, when she bowed to Yi Xian and called him master, Yi Xian still felt goosebumps on his back. Illusion. He originally wanted to say a few polite words, and at the same time, he wanted to get closer to Hankue. Hankue had a devilish figure. If he became familiar with Hankue, he would be like Xianyuan Ziying and Duanmu Shaocha in the future. Hankue would rush over to hug him when he was excited. That would definitely feel very good. However, before Yi Xian could finish speaking, he immediately noticed a change. He was stunned for a moment before he involuntarily cried out, Hanba, your cultivation strength. Damn, it's actually a late-stage Star Lord? Yi Xian was shocked. If he didn't remember wrongly, the last time he absorbed nearly a third of the innate Een chilling spirit liquid in the Een pool of the Een demon clan's ancestral grounds, before the drought demon fell into a deep slumber, his cultivation was clearly at the pinnacle of the 9th step of the universe realm, which was also a half-step Star Lord. Even if she had made a breakthrough, she would only be in the early stage of the Star Lord realm at best. However, that was clearly not the case at the moment. Hanba, the corpse ancestor, had reached the advanced stage of the Star Lord state after a single seclusion, which was a leap of almost 1 major realm. If it was in the early stages, then it wouldn't be a big deal. It wasn't like Yi Xian hadn't jumped by a large realm before. However, this was the increase in cultivation after the 15th Great Realm, the universe realm. This time, he actually managed to reach a large realm. This was simply unacceptable and could be said to be terrifying. However, after Hanba explained a few words, Yi Xian understood. He immediately sighed. Comparing people to people was truly infuriating. Although the other party only left a wisp of spiritual sense origin in the Yanluo, after all, the memories of the past were still there, including some cultivation insights. Therefore, after obtaining a large amount of innate cold spiritual liquid to reconstruct the treasure body, the rise in the cultivation realm was simply a matter of course. It was not at all difficult. There was no bottleneck. To put it bluntly, she wasn't cultivating at all, she was recovering. Naturally, it would be quick for her to recover. According to such a speed, if he were to obtain another fortuitous encounter like the fortuitous encounter within the Yin pool, then it wouldn't be a problem for corpse ancestor Hanba's cultivation to directly rise into the ranks of region lords. This was naturally a good thing for Yi Xian. At that time, he would have another region lord realm expert under his command, which was a top-notch combat strength. Even though the realm lord realm experts had appeared in the 3 universes, they basically wouldn't make a move and would stay in their clans. The strongest combat strength in the outside world was the region lord realm. Yi Xian already had 2 under his command, which were the primordial porcupine and the primordial hairy tortoise. If Hanba, the corpse ancestor, was added, their overall strength would instantly soar by a large margin. Moreover, his identities as Linghu Young Master, the Netherworld Young Master, and the ancient ape demons had been exposed. The Yanluo was obtained by the Netherworld Young Master, and it had nothing to do with Prince Xian and the other identities that hadn't been exposed yet. In other words, if it was necessary, Yi Xian could utilize the Yanluo without any pressure at all. This caused Yi Xian's mood to instantly improve because he had another region lord realm expert that he could utilize at any time. This was an extraordinarily happy matter. However, this pleasant surprise was obviously not limited to just this. Yi Xian was still feeling happy when Hanba suddenly spoke, and it caused Yi Xian to be stunned on the spot. Ho Qing is about to appear. Ho Qing? Corpse ancestor Ho Qing? Yi Xian was stunned, and then he was overjoyed once more. He turned to look at Hanba and asked, "Where is she? Where is she?" Ho Qing was one of the 4 corpse ancestors, and she was a woman as well. Unlike Hanba's fiery temper, Ho Qing's style was charming and cold. This caused Yi Xian to feel extreme anticipation. He truly wanted to see these 2 corpse ancestors with completely different styles and bearings stand in a row before him. It would definitely be pleasing to the eye. Moreover, as one of the 4 corpse ancestors, once Ho Qing awoke and was able to reconstruct her true body, even if her cultivation wouldn't reach the Star Lord state so quickly, it was believed that it wouldn't be long before her strength would grow to the Star Lord state or even the Region Lord state. After all, she wasn't cultivating, and just like the corpse ancestor and Hanba, she was merely recovering. In that case, it wouldn't be long before the number of region lords under Yi Xian's command would reach a terrifying number of 4. Back in the root of all evil star region, only 8 region lords had been gathered by the various top powers of the 3 universes in a short period of time. After all, some small races had a certain amount of resources. However, there were no region lords in their races. However, Yi Xian alone had 4 region lords under his command. If news of this were to spread, it would definitely cause countless people to cry out in shock. A young junior whose strength was merely at the 13th great realm, the Genesis realm, had 4 old monsters under him. What sort of concept was this? Chapter 38-34. Although Ho Qing's source of consciousness has been awakened, she can't show up yet, unless she reconstructs her true body. After hearing Yi Xian's words, corpse ancestor Hanba immediately explained. He pointed at the giant rat's corpse on the ground and continued, "This purple gold void rat's cultivation isn't low either. Back then, it was in existence on the same level as me and Ho Qing, a supreme being from the primordial era. Although he's already dead, his true body is still there, and the pressure inside him is too strong. I've regained my Star Lord state and reconstructed my true body, so I'm naturally able to resist it. After all, too much of the pressure has been lost over the years, and it's no longer at its peak. But Ho Qing is different. She's only a strand of spirit sense. If she appeared under such circumstances, she would immediately be injured by this powerful pressure and probably fall into a deep slumber again. But she has to come out this time, because her hope of reconstructing her true body is inside the purple gold void rat. Damn it! What should I do? Yi Xian immediately became anxious when corpse ancestor Ho Qing, who had just awoken from his spiritual sense, fell into a deep sleep again. Although there were several extremely famous primordial-era Yan Xiu's spiritual sense origins sealed within this Yan Luo, after such a long time, other than the corpse ancestor Hanba, who had spontaneously awakened when he obtained this treasure, the other Yan Xiu's spiritual sense origins were all sealed within this Yan Luo. They had been sleeping all the time. Now that he had finally met someone who had woken up, if they immediately fell into a deep sleep after waking up, that would be 2F** ket up. It was simply depressing. Who knew when such a good thing would happen again? How long would it take? While feeling depressed, Yi Xian suddenly recalled the second half of corpse ancestor Hanba's words. He was stunned for a moment before turning to look at the enormous purple gold void rat and asking, "Oh right, you just said that Ho Qing's hope of reconstructing his true body lies within this dead rat's body? What's going on? Dead rat?" Hanba was stunned for a moment. She then shook her head and smiled bitterly. "Fine, it's indeed a dead rat. Cough, cough. However, Ho Qing's hope of reconstructing her true body is indeed inside this dead rat. My Ho Qing cultivates the corpse Tao. If I want to reconstruct my true body, my spiritual sense origin must obtain a wisp of the essence of the corpse Tao. Originally, there was a wisp of the essence of the corpse Tao in Yan Luo, but because I woke up first, I used it. Actually, Ho Qing had already awakened half a month ago, but she never came out. Without the corpse Tao origin essence to fuse with, if her origin essence stayed outside the treasure net for too long, it's very likely that it would disperse. In the past half a month, Ho Qing has been cultivating in the treasure net, consolidating the origin of her spiritual senses. Earlier, she and I both sensed a strand of the origin of the corpse Tao, so she alerted you out of excitement. She doesn't want to miss this opportunity. And the direction of the essence of corpses. When he spoke up to this point, corpse ancestor Hitorigami pointed at the corpse of the violet gold void rat that was enormous like a meteor, and then a bright light flashed in his eyes as he said, "It's within that violet gold void rat. There's a essence of corpses in the dead rat's body?" Yi Xian was shocked. He exclaimed, "Is it a zombie? Is it going to turn into a zombie rat? That would be incredible." His cultivation realm when he was alive was clearly displayed here, and it was rare that his precious body was still intact. If by any chance he really turned rigid, wouldn't that mean that an ancient almighty zombie rat would appear out of nowhere? Who can suppress it? You're thinking too much. How can the corpse of a primordial age zombie turn into a zombie so easily? Hanba was stunned. Black lines appeared on her forehead. She explained again. She pointed at the corpse of the purple gold void rat and continued, "This purple gold void rat has indeed died. However, before it died, it left a trace of its essence of consciousness in its body, just like how Ho Qing and I were sealed in the Yan Luo. It's the same as the Yan Luo. His purpose was to leave it for the future. If he could obtain rare treasures like the all-evil origin elixir in sufficient quantities, he might be able to use it to allow this wisp of spirit sense origin to live a second life. It's like being reborn from the ashes. Unfortunately, he never got this opportunity. Although time didn't decay the body of the primordial age mighty void rat, the trace of its essence of consciousness he left in its body was gradually attacked by the corpse aura. In the end, its consciousness was annihilated. After countless years of nurturing, it finally turned into a trace of nothing. The essence of corpses without any consciousness. And just now, the 2 half-foot square lumps of netherworld furnace lotion and 9-colored meat paste suddenly appeared in the inner space of the rat tomb star. The reason why the corpse of the void rat trembled slightly was because the essence of corpses sensed the aura. Although the purple gold void rat's essence of consciousness has been annihilated, it left behind a trace of obsession in the essence of corpses. This trace of obsession sensed the aura of the netherworld furnace lotion and the 9-colored meat paste. This was the opportunity he had been waiting for, so naturally, there was a weak reaction. At this point, a look of relief appeared on Hanba's face. What a good trace of obsession. Although it's troublesome and needs to be refined, if it weren't for its existence, the essence of corpses wouldn't have emitted its aura because of the obsession. Ho Qing and I wouldn't have been able to sense it. Speaking of which, all of this is fate. Yi Xian roughly understood. At the same time, he basically guessed the scheme of the Realm Lord Golden Rat waiting outside the Rat Tomb Star. It was clear that the situation of the Purple Gold Void Rat and the Rat Mound Star's returning ruins had been passed down by the Spatial Rat clan. Just like a legend. The Realm Master's Golden Mouse, who was scheming against Yi Xian, happened to know of this legend. He knew that the Netherworld Furnace Lotion and the 9-colored flesh paste were extremely likely to allow the strand of spiritual sense remaining in the Purple Gold Void Rat's body to obtain a fortuitous encounter and live a second life. Of course, a mere half-foot square was definitely not enough. The half-foot square lumps of Netherworld Furnace Lotion and 9-colored meat paste that he had secretly sent into the Rat Tomb Star through some kind of method was actually just a medicinal primer. The purpose was only to activate the essence of consciousness left in the Purple Gold Void Rat's body. When the time came, this essence of consciousness would naturally make a move on Yi Xian. According to his guess, Yi Xian definitely still had a large amount of Netherworld Furnace Lotion and 9-colored meat paste in his hands. This was enough to allow the Purple Gold Void Rat to revive and live a second life. Chapter 38-35. Yi Xian sneered inwardly after roughly analyzing the scheme of the Golden Rat waiting outside the Rat Mound. However, he didn't dwell too much on this matter and quickly threw it to the back of his mind. After all, although the other party was shameless, his scheme had failed in the end. Furthermore, he would have to pay a certain price for this. At the very least, he wouldn't be able to obtain a single strand of the Purple Gold Void Rat meat that Yi Xian was originally going to give him. This way, his hatred would be resolved. The most important problem in front of them was still the matter of corpse ancestor Ho Qing reconstructing his corpse Dao true body. Yi Xian quickly turned to corpse ancestor Hitorigami and asked, "Then what should we do now?" The 2 half-foot square chunks of Netherworld Furnace milk and 9-colored meat paste should be in the hands of the corpse Dao origin by now. If there are enough of these top-grade materials, although they won't be able to transform the Purple Gold Void Rat's huge body directly, the corpse Dao origin will be able to. Because of that strand of obsession, it will be able to give birth to a new corpse Dao consciousness. Just like Ho Qing now, at that time, this corpse Dao origin will no longer be able to be used because it will have been branded with the unique aura of other corpse Dao consciousnesses and can no longer be refined. When he spoke up to hear, corpse ancestor Hanba stopped speaking, and then he revealed an expression of relief once more. Fortunately, the 2 handfuls of nether furnace milk and 9-colored flesh paste were truly too little, and they were only half a foot in size. So, the strand of obsession left behind in this strand of corpse Dao quintessence didn't have the chance to grow into a completely new strand of corpse Dao consciousness. What we need to do now is to draw it out of the Purple Gold Void Rat's body and refine that strand of obsession with your Shenong unusual flame. After that, this corpse Dao origin can be sent to Yen Luo and given to Ho Qing's spirit sense origin to reconstruct his corpse Dao true body. Of course, it's only a strand of corpse Dao origin. Ho Qing's corpse Dao true body will only be in the initial stages of reconstruction, just like me when I first came out of Yen Luo. At that time, his cultivation will only be able to recover to the universe realm. Don't you still have a large amount of innate chilling spiritual liquid? When the time comes, we can send it to the Yen Luo together. Besides, the Netherworld Furnace Lotion is also very useful for the recovery of the corpse Dao true body. This time, Ho Qing's fortuitous encounters have clearly surpassed mine. Before this, I only managed to collect large amounts of innate essence liquid from the pool in the ancestral lands of the demons. Besides the natural chill nectar, Zhou Qing will obtain a huge amount of nether furnace elixir as well. If nothing unexpected occurs, then once she absorbs all of this and falls into deep slumber to refine and absorb the elixir, her cultivation will recover to the Region Lord realm when she wakes up once more, and she won't be at the second rank after refining and absorbing the elixir like me. He was only in the advanced Star Lord state when he woke up. That doesn't matter. Yi Xian could hear a hint of disappointment in Hanba's words. He immediately cracked into a smile. I still have several tens of thousands of cubes of Netherforge elixir. Apart from supplying it to Ho Qin, you also have some. Moreover, it's not just the Netherforge elixir either. I also have the final product of the Netherforge elixir, the all-evil origin elixir. I still have a little over 2,000 drops on hand. If you need it, I can supply you with the same amount. In short, whatever she has, you will have. You even have the all-evil origin elixir? As soon as Yi Xian finished speaking, Hanba exclaimed in pleasant surprise, that's great. This time, we only need 10 drops each. We can't bite off more than we can chew. The all-evil origin elixir doesn't have any weakening effects, so we can keep using it. 10 drops will be enough for both Ho Qin and me to break through to the Region Lord Realm. We'll be able to break through to the next level. Then it's decided. Yi Xian nodded. He glanced at the huge remains of the purple gold void rat on the ground again, and a bright light flashed in his eyes. Then, let's begin. Swish. As soon as he finished speaking, Hanba's figure vanished. He transformed into a wisp of blood-red light that charged into the purple gold void rat's body. Yi Xian didn't go down. Instead, he waited in the void above. After a short while, the blood-red light flashed once more. Hanba held a ball of pure black energy in his hand as he moved forward to greet Yi Xian. The black ball of light seemed to be ordinary, yet some obscure talisman markings and numerous chains continued to emerge and vanish within it, and it revealed a wisp of an ancient and distant aura. Moreover, a strand of blood-red threads could be faintly seen moving about in the surroundings, and it was filled with unwillingness. If nothing unexpected happened, then this strand of blood-red threads was the remaining trace of obsession within this ball of corpse Tao quintessence. Yi Xian immediately waved his hand and withdrew a strand of the Shinong tricolor flames. At this moment, Hanba tossed the ball of corpse Tao quintessence into the air before Yi Xian. The Shinong tricolor flames immediately enveloped the ball of black corpse Tao quintessence, and then the refinement immediately began. Of course, this kind of refinement wasn't to refine it for his own use and brand it with Yi Xian's divine sense aura. It was only to refine the strand of blood-red obsession within this ball of corpse Tao quintessence. In Yi Xian's opinion, this was obviously simpler and should be completed quickly. But the reality surprised him greatly. Under the envelopment of the Shinong tricolor flames, this ball of black corpse Tao quintessence stood there quietly without moving at all. However, the blood threads that had been roaming inside it suddenly struggled violently at this moment, as if they were avoiding something. If this was the case, then what they were avoiding should be the power of the Shinong tricolor flames. Sure enough, it was worthy of being a strand of obsession formed by the primordial purple gold void rat's spiritual sense origin. For a while, even the Shinong tricolor flames couldn't do anything to it and couldn't refine it immediately. Time passed slowly. The unusual scene in front of him made Yi Xian's heart jump to his throat. If even the Shinong tricolor flames couldn't refine the blood-red obsession in this ball of corpse Tao quintessence, then it would be difficult for Yi Xian to use other effective methods. Unless the headless infant corpse took action. Fortunately, this stalemate didn't last for too long. After about 10 minutes, the strand of blood-red obsession in the black corpse Tao quintessence finally slowed down. In the end, it finally stopped moving. But it wasn't completely refined and disappeared. Instead, it still existed in the black corpse Tao quintessence. Did he fail? This strand of obsession couldn't be refined at all? When this thought flashed through his mind, Yi Xian suddenly panicked a little. The situation was beyond his expectations. Not only him, but even the corpse ancestor Hanba in the void showed a worried expression and frowned. Chapter 38-36. Just as the blood threads of obsession in the black corpse way origin were forced out and refined into a faint blood-colored mist, which was wrapped in the Shinong tricolor flame, a familiar system notification unexpectedly sounded in Yi Xian's mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for discovering the essence of the spiritual sense origin. Do you wish to absorb it immediately? Essence of the spiritual sense origin? Yi Xian was startled for a moment before he came back to his senses. Obviously, the so-called essence of the spiritual sense origin was referring to the faint blood-colored mist that was wrapped in the Shinnon tricolor flame. It was what he obtained from refining the blood thread of obsession. After all, this blood thread of obsession was originally the essence of the spiritual sense origin left behind by the purple gold void rat. Because this spiritual sense origin had been nourished by the corpse chi in its remains for countless years, it had now turned into a corpse way origin and was about to become the corpse ancestor Ho Qing. And a strand of essence had turned into the blood thread of obsession. Now that this blood thread of obsession had been refined, it had turned into a faint blood-colored mist that could be absorbed by Yi Xian. It seemed to be a good thing. If it wasn't, the system wouldn't have issued a notification asking if he wanted to absorb it immediately. Yi Xian had already figured out the routine for this. However, now was not the time to absorb it, because according to Yi Xian's estimation, once he absorbed this thing, he would probably have to go into seclusion to break through on the spot. After all, this purple gold void rat was not an ordinary existence. It was at the level of a remote antiquity expert. As the essence of the spiritual sense origin left behind by the purple gold void rat and refined by the Shinnon tricolor flame, how could its grade and effect be inferior? Yi Xian seemed to have seen the moment of his breakthrough, but he couldn't predict whether it would be by one or two small levels. It wasn't that he couldn't go into seclusion to break through on the rat's grave continent, but there was an urgent matter at hand, which was the matter of the corpse ancestor Ho Qing reconstructing the corpse way true body. Soon, Yi Xian absorbed the faint blood-colored mist into his body along with the Shinnon tricolor flame that enveloped it. Then, the purest black corpse Dao origin drifted toward the primordial desolation treasure Yen Luo floating in the void and entered it. This was not the end. Following which, Yi Xian took out a large amount of innate chilling spirit liquid, netherworld furnace lotion and 9-colored meat paste from his undying world and threw them all into the Yen Luo net. Finally, it was another 20 drops of all evil origin elixir. Of course, it wasn't just for Ho Qing. Hanba's share was included as well. She was about to enter Yen Luo anyway. It really is the all-evil origin elixir, a top-grade item. Even during the primordial era, when my true body had yet to perish, I would still feel envious when I saw something like this. Seeing that Yi Xian had indeed sent 20 drops of evil origin liquid into the Yen Luo, corpse ancestor Hanba's face immediately bloomed with a smile. He bowed towards Yi Xian and said, "Thank you, master." With that, she blushed and leaped into the Yen Luo net. This was the first time Yi Xian had seen her behaving like a girl. He was immediately a little dazed. Before he could react, another voice rang out from the Yen Luo net. "Thank you, master." This was obviously not the corpse ancestor Hanba. His voice was even more flirtatious and emitted a charming feeling. Just hearing his voice made Yi Xian's body go weak. It was definitely the voice of the corpse ancestor, Ho Qing, who was famous for her charm. Cough cough cough. "You guys, recover well." Yi Xian's expression wavered slightly. He immediately felt a little awkward. He coughed lightly and casually gave them some instructions. Then, he waved his hand and stored the Yen Luo net into his body. Perhaps, the next time he used this treasure, if the corpse ancestor, Hanba, and Ho Qing had already come out of seclusion, then Yi Xian's subordinates would immediately have 2 more charming domain lords under his command. After dealing with the matter of corpse ancestor Ho Qing, Yi Xian immediately started to check the attributes and effects of that strand of spiritual sense essence in the database of the devouring system. This rat tomb continent was the best place for closed-door cultivation. He was the only one in the entire planet, and there was a thick layer of over 100 kilometers above his head. Even an old monster like the Realm Lord wouldn't be able to enter, so Yi Xian naturally didn't have to worry about being disturbed during his closed-door cultivation. After understanding, Yi Xian was even more pleasantly surprised. This fruit of essence was extraordinary. Not only could it increase the strength of the divine sense and stabilize the cultivator's primordial spirit, it even had the effect of tempering the body. In other words, it was tempering the body and primordial spirit at the same time, making the two more closely connected. Good stuff. It seems that this time seclusion definitely won't be as simple as breaking through a small realm. Muttering to himself, Yi Xian couldn't help but be filled with anticipation. Now, in terms of body, blood, and cultivation, he was already at the 13th realm, primordial realm 6. Once he activated the three-headed six-armed ancient demonic ape state, his cultivation would be at the 3rd level of universe realm. If he was able to break through another 3 small levels this time, Yi Xian's cultivation would be able to step into the Great Circle of Genesis Stage 9 in one go. At that time, he would be able to consume the level 14 liquid. Once the level 14 liquid was successful, his cultivation would advance to the level 14 cosmic light stage. At that time, after activating the three-headed six-armed ancient demonic ape bloodline ability, his cultivation would jump 2 small realms from his original foundation, reaching the 5th level of universe realm, close to the late stage of universe realm. With the effect of the essence of this canopy's spiritual sense source, it's obvious that there won't be any problem for me to break through 2 small levels in one go during this seclusion. But this isn't enough. It's best to break through to the 9th level in one go. At that time, I can immediately take the level 14 liquid. As he muttered to himself, Yi Xian quickly came to a decision. Whatever, I'll use another drop of all evil origin liquid. If nothing unexpected happens, it shouldn't be a problem for me to break through 3 small ranks with the help of the essence of this canopy. After making his decision, Yi Xian clenched his teeth and directly took out a drop of all evil origin liquid from the undying world within his body and handed it over to the devouring system. Then, he gave the system the order to immediately absorb this drop of all evil origin liquid and the essence of spiritual sense that he had just obtained. In his mind, the familiar sound of the system notification rang. Yi Xian quickly sat down cross-legged in the void, closed his eyes, and entered a state of cultivation where he forgot everything. After an unknown amount of time, when Yi Xian opened his eyes again, the anticipated system notification rang in his mind at the first moment. As expected, the familiar sound of the system notification actually rang out 3 times this time. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of blood and qi. Current realm, primordial realm 7. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of blood and qi. Current realm, primordial realm 9 perfection. Primordial realm 9 perfection. After breaking through 3 small realms, Yi Xian finally reached the peak of this realm. Chapter 38-37. Xiao. A faint sound of something breaking through the air rang out. With a wave of his hand, a faint blue light shot out from the undying world within Yi Xian's body. It suddenly stopped and floated in front of Yi Xian. This was a medicinal test tube. The material of the test tube was a top-grade flawless ice crystal. The light blue liquid inside was the level 14 liquid that Yi Xian had just condensed not long ago. On the path of physical evolution, using this kind of genetic cultivation fluid will allow one to reach the 15th realm, the universe realm, at most. Looking at this test tube of light blue grade 14 liquid, Yi Xian couldn't help but sigh. Thinking back to the time when I first took the first test tube of the grade 1 liquid, everything seemed so close before my eyes. Who would have thought that I would reach the grade 14 liquid so quickly? After the grade 15 liquid, I can no longer use this method to refine the body-tempering medicine. I have to use the farmer god cauldron to refine it like how I refine the heaven and earth great medicine. In other words, after taking the grade 14 liquid this time, I can only use this method once more. It seems that I have to start using the farmer god cauldron to refine the flesh great medicine immediately. Otherwise, I'm afraid that I will be stuck at the universe realm and be unable to advance on the path of cultivation. At this point, Yi Xian helplessly shook his head and smiled bitterly. He didn't dare to think too much about it and quickly threw these thoughts to the back of his mind. With a thought, the tube of light blue liquid floating in front of him opened and shot directly into Yi Xian's mouth. Once again, Yi Xian crossed his legs and closed his eyes to meditate. Once again, he entered a state of cultivation where he forgot about everything around him. Very quickly, a pained expression appeared on Yi Xian's face. This was the effect of the grade 14 liquid. It was really breaking through the shackles of his physical body's potential. This wasn't the first time that Yi Xian had experienced this, but every time, he felt extreme pain. Although his cultivation had increased, each time he used the gene cultivation fluid, its effects would also increase. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to achieve the desired effect. He wouldn't be able to break through the shackles of his body's potential, tearing apart the shackles that shackled his body's vital energy and blood. The entire process did not last very long. After all, he had already laid down the foundation beforehand. The remaining energy from the all-evil liquid and the essence of the spiritual sense that he had just swallowed was still surging endlessly in Yi Xian's body. The shackles on his potential had long been loosened. Because of this, as the medicinal effects of the level 14 liquid spread out, coupled with the remaining power of the all-evil elixir and the essence of spiritual sense, the clanking sounds of the chains vaguely coming from Yi Xian's body grew louder and louder. Finally, with a loud clang, the chains that shackled his physical body and qi and blood were shackled. The shackles were finally completely torn apart, no longer binding him. At this moment, the speed of the energy surging in Yi Xian's body suddenly increased. If it was a turbulent river before, then it was now a majestic and surging lake. It was completely different from before. The next moment, Yi Xian, who was sitting cross-legged in the void, opened his eyes. A sharp light shot out from his eyes, appearing incomparably cold. In his mind, the familiar system notification sounded at the right time. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of vital energy and blood. Current realm, Cosmic Rank 1. Cosmic Rank 1. This was equivalent to Yi Xian breaking through a total of 4 small realms this time. According to his previous speculation, the increase of 2 small realms in his original body could be exchanged for a small increase in his strength in the state of the 3 6-headed demonic ape real form. Previously, Yi Xian could display the strength of Cosmic Rank 3 in the state of the 3-headed demonic ape real form. Now that his original body's vital energy and blood had increased by 4 small realms, then, if there were no accidents, once the demonic ape real form was activated, his cultivation strength would reach the terrifying Cosmic Rank 5. He was not far from the late stage of the universe realm. In order to verify whether this speculation was correct, Yi Xian immediately stood up and activated the demonic ape real form with a thought. Soon, a 3-headed, 6-armed ancient demonic ape appeared out of nowhere. The cultivation aura that exuded from its body was indeed Cosmic Rank 5, just as Yi Xian had speculated. There was no difference between them. However, this was not the strongest combat strength that Yi Xian could display at the moment, because in the state of the demonic ape real form, he still had the bloodline power of the 9 changes of the demonic ape that he had just obtained not long ago. With every change, his cultivation strength would increase by 1 small realm. 9 changes of the demonic ape. First change. Following Yi Xian's roar, the ancient demonic ape's body size increased again in the next moment. An inexplicable bloodline power instantly surged in its body, converging into a tide-like power. The vital energy and blood of the 3 ancient demonic ape real forms were greatly increased. In the blink of an eye, the body of the ancient demonic ape, which was originally 100 feet tall, directly leaped to a height of 1,000 feet. Cultivation aura, Rank 6 Cosmos Realm. 9 changes of the demonic ape. Second change. After the second roar, the familiar feeling came again. The vital energy and blood of the 3 real forms surged again, and the magnitude exceeded that of the first change. Before the first change, the ancient demonic ape real forms were 1,000 feet tall, but now, they had soared to a height of 1,000 feet. Cultivation aura, Rank 7 Cosmos Realm. Roar. 9 changes of the demonic ape. Third change. Yi Xian once again raised his head and roared. Following the activation of the third transformation of the devil ape, the endlessly surging vital energy within the 3 true bodies once again soared. It surged like a roaring river, directly causing the 3-headed, 6-armed devil ape's true body to rapidly expand like a balloon. From the original height of 1,000 feet, it rapidly grew to 20,000 feet, 30,000 feet, until finally, it was 100,000 feet. Cultivation aura, Rank 8 Cosmos Realm. In less than 3 breaths, Yi Xian activated the ancient demonic ape real forms, directly activating the bloodline ability of the 9 changes of the demonic ape real forms. Although it was only activated to the 3rd change, the size of the ancient demonic ape real forms had already reached a height of 100,000 feet, and the strength of the ancient demonic ape real forms had increased by another 3 small levels. Now that he had reached rank 8 Cosmos Realm, he was only a small level away from rank 9 Grand Completion. If he could use the 4th change of the 9 changes of the demonic ape real forms now, not only would the ancient demonic ape real forms soar by another 10 times, but it would also reach a terrifying height of 100,000 feet. The strength of the ancient demonic ape real forms would also increase by another small level, reaching rank 9 Cosmos Realm. Moreover, the ancient demonic ape real forms would have reached a height of 300,000 feet due to its size, and its vital energy and blood would be so abundant that it would make one's hair stand on end. Therefore, although the strength of the ancient demonic ape real forms would be at rank 9 Cosmos Realm, the strength of the ancient demonic ape real forms would be enough to shock even the Star Lords. 100,000 feet ancient demonic ape real forms, how terrifying would that be? Chapter 38. Yi Xian was very satisfied with his harvest. It was a pleasant surprise. Not only had another great figure from the primordial era awakened within the Veil of Dusk, if nothing unexpected happened, then the cultivations of Corpse Ancestor Han Ba and Corpse Ancestor Ho Qing would rise into the Region Lord realm upon awakening from their closed-door cultivation. Yi Xian was far more powerful than before, and he would come in contact with more and more powerful Star State experts in the future. His subordinates at the Universe State were basically useless to him. Subordinates at the Star Lord State were the minimum requirement to become his generals. Only those at the Domain Lord State would be able to take charge of things on their own. It could be said that Corpse Ancestor Hanba and Corpse Ancestor Ho Qing had definitely given Yi Xian a pleasant surprise this time. Although he already had 2 Domain Lords by his side, the Primordial Porcupine and the Primordial Tortoise, they were ferocious beasts after all. There were some things that Yi Xian couldn't order them to do. However, Hanba and Ho Qing didn't have such concerns. Moreover, they were hiding in the Yanluo, which was much more convenient. Even though the Primordial Porcupine and the Primordial Tortoise were also in the Shinong Cauldron and were carried by Yi Xian, the Yanluo didn't have to worry about that because it would cause too much of a commotion. It was just a small handkerchief that was as light as a feather. In addition to these, Yi Xian's own cultivation had also increased by too much. Now, he was already in existence at the 14th level of the Cosmic Light Realm. If he were to activate the Devil Ape's bloodline and enter the true body of the 3-headed 6-armed Devil Ape, and then use the 9 transformations of the Devil Ape 3 times in a row, Yi Xian would be able to use the 3rd transformation of the Devil Ape. His current strength would reach the 8th rank of the Universe State. Just this strength on the surface was enough for him to fight a Star Lord head-on. If he added some other techniques, Yi Xian was confident that he wouldn't lose in a battle against a late-stage Star Lord. But that wasn't the end of it. In addition to the above, there was also the corpse of a primordial almighty being waiting to be collected. Not only was the body of the purple gold void rat huge like a small star, but its body hadn't rotted away even after it had fallen for countless years, and its life essence was still preserved in its body. This level of precious blood and flesh was something that even a Sector Lord level existence like the Golden Rat longed for. Yi Xian had never obtained such a thing before. At most, he had obtained a 9-colored meat paste made from the minced flesh of a large number of beings of the same realm. Although the effect of the 9-colored meat paste was similar to that of the purple gold void rat's corpse, the path was completely different. The 9-colored meat paste could be used to refine medicine, or the energy within it could be directly extracted. However, it could not be roasted with the Shinong tricolored flame. The roasted meat paste would be a large piece, and it would be tasteless. No matter how good it would be a waste. However, the complete flesh of the purple gold void rat was different. Yi Xian could cut down wherever he wanted to eat, and the roasted meat would be golden and oily. It looked, smelled, and tasted good. Just thinking about it made Yi Xian want to eat immediately. Unfortunately, it wasn't the right time. There was still a Sector Lord Golden Rat waiting outside. Yi Xian had been inside the Rat Mound planet for more than a day. The Golden Rat of the Space Rat clan wasn't a good person, so Yi Xian naturally wasn't worried about it. However, he had to consider the feelings of Grandpa Mo and Mo Qigong, who were outside the Rat Mound Grotto Heaven. After all, the Space Rat clan was just an ally that had just joined, and couldn't be completely trusted. Not only Yi Xian, but Grandpa Mo and Mo Qigong also felt the same. And this time, Yi Xian had entered the clan's forbidden ground, the Rat Mound Grotto Heaven, alone. If this dragged on for too long, it was impossible for Grandpa Mo and Mo Qigong to not be anxious. If by any chance, the two domain lords of the Space Rat clan who were accompanying them outside the Rat Mound Grotto Heaven became anxious and got injured, that wouldn't be good. Although Yi Xian was angry at the Sector Lord Golden Rat's shameless scheme against him, he didn't plan to fall out with the Space Rat clan because of this. In any case, he had already reaped enough benefits, and the only one to lose was the other party. Since that was the case, he would be magnanimous and not bicker with such a shameless clan. Of course, this was just a nice way to put it. To put it bluntly, it was just one sentence: the more shameless you are, the more I have to endure. Then, I'll make good use of you, and in the end, I'll directly kill you. To deal with the Space Rat clan, Yi Xian planned to use this method to deal with them. With such a large rat corpse, and a primordial almighty existence at that, Yi Xian simply couldn't do anything to it with his current strength. If he wanted to collect this rat corpse, he could only use the Shinong Cauldron. In this way, the Shinong Cauldron had to show its complete state. Currently, it had only shrunk to a size of 100 feet, so it couldn't be collected at all. Fortunately, this Rat Mound star was big enough. Although the Shinong Cauldron's complete state was also as big as a star, stars also had sizes. The Rat Mound star was the kind of superstar that was extremely rare even in the three universes. After the Shinong Cauldron showed its complete state, it wasn't small either. It was a huge star. However, compared to the Rat Mound star, there was still a gap. With a thought, Yi Xian activated the Shinong Cauldron, making it show its complete state. The inner space of the star's 100 miles thick atmosphere was just enough to fit it. Then, with a whoosh, the huge rat corpse that was as big as a small meteor on the ground was collected by Yi Xian into the Shinong Cauldron. It directly landed in the sealed storage area at the bottom of the central domain volcano. During this process, the huge rat corpse passed by the central domain volcano and was coincidentally seen by Yi Jiuming and Meng Mashan, who were still imprisoned at the bottom of the central domain volcano. Although the huge rat corpse's ancient aura was greatly weakened because it entered the Shinong Cauldron, but that aura still surpassed the Sector Lord level. On the spot, Yi Jiuming and Meng Mashan were paralyzed with fear. Their entire bodies fell to the ground, their faces filled with shock. They muttered to themselves, "Heavens, what a huge rat corpse, this, could it be the Space Rat clan's bloodline ancestor? It has to be at least an existence that surpasses the Sector Lord level." What did young Master Ling Hu do? Even an existence that surpasses the Sector Lord level was collected by him and prepared to be roasted? This is too crazy. As the corpse of the great primordial purple gold void rat was taken away, the terrifying pressure in the void of the Rat Mound star instantly weakened by a large margin. However, because the star was too vast, even the thick fog atmosphere above their heads was hundreds of miles thick. Therefore, the pressure gradually weakened. Since it was outside the Rat Mound star, it should not have been detected so quickly. Chapter 38-39. The only good fortune on Rat Mound star was the corpse of the primordial great power purple gold void rat. Now that Yi Xian had taken it into the Shinong Cauldron, there was no longer any value in staying on this star. Yi Xian directly charged into the thick fog in the sky without the slightest reluctance. His body was hidden within the 9-colored fog at the entrance of the Shinong Cauldron. With the protection of its power, he rushed out from the other side of the thick fog in a short period of time. When his figure appeared again, he was already in the Rat Ruins Grotto Heaven outside the atmosphere of Rat Mound star. Immediately after, a golden light flashed and stopped in the void not far in front of Yi Xian. It was that shameless golden rat. Ling Hu? Seeing Yi Xian suddenly appear and rush out of the thick fog atmosphere of Rat Tomb Star, the Realm Master Golden Rat's face was filled with a dumbstruck expression as he stuttered. He had been waiting for a long time. He had been waiting here since a day ago when he set up the formation and sent the 2 chunks of netherworld furnace lotion and 9-colored meat paste into the inner space of Rat Mound star behind the thick atmosphere. His mood could be said to be fluctuating and uneasy. There was indeed a record in the Space Mouse Clan's clan book about the purple gold void rat's spiritual sense origin, but that was a long time ago and had almost become a legend. Therefore, even the golden rat wasn't sure if this was true. His previous action of sending out the 2 chunks of netherworld furnace lotion and 9-colored meat paste was actually equivalent to a gamble. He was betting on the authenticity of this legend. If he won, then young Master Linghu would enter the inner space of Rat Mound Star and wouldn't be able to come back. The Space Rat clan would have another bloodline progenitor with the foundation of a primordial great power. He himself might even obtain a large amount of treasures. After all, young Master Linghu had a lot of good stuff. As the second reincarnation of a purple gold void rat with the foundation of an almighty from the primordial era, this bloodline primordial ancestor must have a lot of treasures that he didn't want. However, if he didn't win, then not only would the 2 chunks of netherworld furnace lotion and 9-colored meat paste that he had painstakingly sent to Rat Mound Star go to waste, it was very likely that young Master Linghu would find out about this and anger him. At that time, it would really be going for wool and coming home shorn. Therefore, the Sector Lord Golden Rat had actually been apprehensive all this time. But now, when he saw that the one who rushed out of the thick fog atmosphere was not a big purple gold rat with a terrifying aura who had lived a second life, but young Master Linghu who had just entered for a day, the Sector Lord Golden Rat's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately became uneasy. So, he asked tentatively, little friend, you came out so quickly. How was your harvest? Fortunately, at least little friend has come out safely. The heart that has been hanging in my throat all this time can finally be put down. Shameless. Simply too shameless. This thick-skinned is simply unprecedented. Yi Xian sneered in his heart, but his expression didn't change. Instead, he went forward with a smile and grinned. Senior, I didn't disappoint you this time. In the end, I brought out some things from that purple gold void rat, Tisk, TSK. You don't know? That rat's corpse was lying on a vast plain on Rat Mound Star. The height of its back was at least 1,000,000 feet. Even the peak of a mountain was left behind. Its body was really too big. What? The legend of the purple gold void rat is actually true? Hearing Yi Xian's words, the golden rat was wild with joy. He was so excited that he almost jumped up on the spot. Rubbing his hands, he finally extended his right hand to Yi Xian. Come, young friend, many thanks. This time, it's all thanks to you. My Space Rat clan will never forget your kindness. Where's the small space box? What did you get? How much treasure blood and treasure meat? Treasure blood and treasure meat? Yi Xian was startled when he heard this. Then, the expression on his face became a little strange. He sighed and finally said, there is, but there are too many. Not to mention the treasure blood, the treasure meat is like an entire mountain range. But I can't cut it off. I don't know what level of cultivation that damn rat was. Even this young master's starry sky treasure saber could only cut through the rat's skin. It couldn't cut into the flesh at all. In the end, I had no choice but to use the strange flame of the Shinong cauldron to burn it. Who knew that once it started burning, it couldn't be stopped? That rat's corpse was too old and had already dried up. Once the flame was ignited, the flames filled the sky. In the blink of an eye, the entire rat's corpse was on fire. At this point, Yi Xian sighed again. In a panic, this king immediately stopped the flames. Unfortunately, it was still too late. For some reason, that super rat's body actually sprang out a mass of black essence, emitting a thick corpse chi. With a loud bang, it exploded into corpse chi and scattered in all directions. In the end, the corpse energy from the corpse Tao origin ignited and turned into black corpse flames that engulfed the rat corpse. This young lord was almost injured. Fortunately, in the end, I gritted my teeth and rushed forward. In the end, I was able to save a little bit. Oh, it's right here. Saying this, Yi Xian flipped his hand and a purple gold rat's hair appeared in his palm. This was the spoil of war he was going to give to the realm lord, the golden rat. Originally, he didn't plan to give him a single hair, but after thinking about it, leaving a hair was also good. This old guy might be angered to death. Of course. This is what you brought out from the rat's grave, Star? This is just a single hair? As early as Yi Xian described the dangers of the entire process with emotion and expression, the realm lord, the golden rat, on the side, was already completely stunned. He stared blankly at Yi Xian, his mouth slowly opening wide. At this moment, when he saw that the so-called spoil of war he took out with a flip of his hand didn't have a single drop of treasure blood or treasure meat, only a single hair, the realm lord, the golden rat, felt as if his brain had exploded, and his expression instantly changed completely. The difference in his state of mind was too great. The higher the hope, the greater the disappointment. In a short period of time, he simply couldn't accept it. Look at what you're saying, senior, how is this a hair? This is a purple gold rat's hair. Yi Xian's heart was already blooming with joy, but his face still maintained a brilliant smile. As he spoke, he had already raised his hand and handed the purple gold rat's hair to the realm lord, the golden rat. Senior, take this as a memento. After all, it's the blood of your space's rat clan. Vain primordial ancestor, that huge rat's corpse as big as a star has completely turned to dust, and flew away. This purple gold rat's hair is the only thing this young master saved despite the danger of his life. Keep it well. Squeak, Linghu brat, you've gone too far. Chapter 3840. Squeak, Linghu brat, you've gone too far. The realm master golden rat suddenly raised its head and let out a long and mournful howl. Immediately after, an incomparably furious roar came out of its mouth. At this instant, the entire boundlessly vast rat ruins abode started to shake, and it was like the entire abode was roaring. The old fellow was furious. Originally, when he saw that it was Yi Xian who charged out of the thick atmosphere and not the purple gold void rat's second life because of the good fortune he sent, he was already extremely displeased. But because he didn't know what was going on Rat Tomb Star, he didn't explode. After that, Yi Xian expressed that he was fortunate enough to not fail his mission and had gained quite a bit. This immediately caused the realm master's golden rat to be overjoyed. Who would have thought that the so-called spoils of war that he took out with a flip of his hand would only be a single strand of the purple gold void rat's hair? This was definitely on purpose. Rather than taking out this strand of fur, it was better to say that he didn't get anything. At least he wouldn't feel so disheartened and his old face wouldn't be so shameful. Sector Lord Golden Rat was now completely sure that the other party had done this on purpose in order to get back at him for plotting against him behind his back. The 2 small chunks of netherworld furnace lotion and 9-colored meat paste that were sent into Rat Tomb Star's space had clearly been discovered by him. And from those 2 items, even an idiot would be able to deduce some things. Although he didn't think that Yi Xian had already taken away the entire corpse of the purple gold void rat and didn't think that he had the ability, he must have obtained some of the precious blood and flesh. At this moment, he deliberately didn't take it out and only handed over a strand of the purple gold rat's fur for revenge. This was originally understandable. After all, the entire matter was Sector Lord Golden Rat's fault. But if the other party was a Sector Lord old monster with the same cultivation level as him, then so be it. He could either lose face and leave in shame or simply admit defeat and apologize face to face. After all, they were already allies. There were some things that had to be said openly. But this brat was only at the 13th realm, Genesis rank 6. What right did he have to show off in front of a Sector Lord old monster? The first-generation Demon Emperor, the Mad Mosquito Emperor, and the Old Devil Mosquito Butcher were powerful, but their projections could only reach the Rat Ruin Star area. It was impossible for them to enter the Rat Ruins Grotto Heaven directly. It would have been better if they had really come. It was guaranteed that every single one of them would be killed, and none of them would be able to return. This Rat Ruins Grotto Heaven was the true ancestral land of the spatial rat race, which had been passed down for countless years. The ancestors of the Rat Ruins Grotto Heaven weren't just simply sector lords or universe grades. There were even existences that surpassed the universe grade. Yet now, he'd been mocked by a junior who hadn't even attained the universe realm in front of all the slumbering ancestors. He was simply unable to hold back his anger. These thoughts flashed through the realm Lord Golden Rat's mind in an instant. Almost in the next instant, before he could finish his roar, a terrifying and domineering aura rushed out of his body and swept toward Yi Xian. The old fellow didn't intend to kill Yi Xian immediately, but he had to completely suppress him and then extort a confession or even search his soul until the last drop of value was squeezed out of him. Since they had already fallen out, the matter of joining the alliance was naturally thrown to the back of his mind. He no longer cared about it. Faced with all this, Yi Xian was calm and fearless. It could even be said that his expression didn't change in the slightest. He had the confidence. On the one hand, he believed that before the information about the purple gold void mouse's treasure body was forced out, this sector Lord Golden Mouse in front of him would never kill him. As for him, he could directly activate the interstellar coordinate jump ability and escape at any time. Although he was currently standing in a small independent space, Yi Xian had already tried using the interstellar coordinate jump ability in such an environment before, so he wasn't affected at all. He would only need half a breath's worth of time to leave. On the other hand, he had an even more confident reliance, and that was the headless infant corpse. Although the headless infant corpse usually ignored Yi Xian, no matter how much he tried to take the initiative to contact and communicate, the other party always ignored him and didn't respond at all. However, at every critical moment, when it was time to make a move, the headless infant corpse would definitely make a move. After all, Yi Xian was his host. Regardless of what the headless infant corpse's motive was or whether it had any unfavorable plans against Yi Xian, one thing was certain. And that was that the headless infant corpse had yet to mature or recover. At the very least, he still needed Yi Xian for now, so he couldn't just watch him die like this. Of course, if Yi Xian died, the headless infant corpse could still choose another Starry Sky Master as its host. However, judging from everything that had happened in the past, Yi Xian was certain that he had some special characteristics. Otherwise, why would the headless infant corpse choose him and never let anything happen to him? Yi Xian still had a lot of doubts about this, but at least he knew that if he didn't activate the interstellar coordinate jump ability and grit his teeth to endure the attack of the realm Lord Golden Rat in front of him, at the very last moment, the headless infant corpse would definitely make a move. In fact, that was exactly what Yi Xian did. Not only was this a test, but it was also a tactful way for him to express his stance towards the headless infant corpse. If the headless infant corpse made a move in the end, then it would be enough to prove Yi Xian's conjecture. At the same time, he did this on purpose, and the headless infant corpse was well aware that he didn't want Yi Xian to continue going to extremes. Presumably, when he tried to communicate with it in the future, there would be some sort of response. Respond. It could be said that Yi Xian didn't react in the slightest when facing the attack of the Realm Master's golden mouse. He had several motives. It was like a gamble, but he was certain that the probability of winning this gamble was at least 70%. With such a high probability, it was worth the risk. And the final result was indeed Yi Xian's victory. Screech, just as the Realm Lord Golden Rat suddenly made a move, the majestic force that surged out of its body was only a few feet away from Yi Xian's body. It seemed like it would completely bind Yi Xian's entire body in the next instant and immediately invade his body to investigate and search for him. Yi Xian's left chest suddenly burned inexplicably. At the same time, an earth-shattering screech suddenly rang out without warning, instantly surging hundreds of millions of miles away. The entire vast rat ruins grotto heaven could be heard clearly in every corner. This screech didn't have any cultivation aura, but it had an indescribably terrifying pressure. Not only Yi Xian, but the Realm Lord Golden Rat in the void in front of him immediately collapsed to the ground. Even the vast and boundless rat ruins grotto heaven began to tremble slightly under this roar, as if there was an earthquake in space. Screech. Chapter 38-41. As the vicious howl resounded, the entire vast and boundless rat ruins grotto heaven started to tremble. Squeak. Squeak. In the few planets with the most ancient auras in the distance, there were even a few trembling sounds full of fear coming out from them. These few planets were closest to the thick fog atmosphere of the rat ruin star, so their auras were also the most ancient. The most powerful bloodline patriarchs of the space rat race had to be sleeping in the rat holes on these planets. Yi Xian had vaguely sensed an aura from the direction of these few planets when he had been following the Realm Lord Golden Rat. It was a terrifying aura that far surpassed the Realm Lord level. It was just a faintly discernible wisp, but at that time, his entire back was drenched in cold sweat. According to his estimations, the ones sleeping on these few ancient planets should be existences whose cultivation had surpassed the universe grade. This was because Yi Xian had sensed the aura of the Realm Lord level in the outer regions, as well as the aura of a universe-grade powerhouse that had surpassed the Realm Lord level. The auras of the slumbers on the oldest planets were even stronger than the ones on the other planets. What else could it be other than an existence that surpassed the universe grade? At this moment, these ancient beings that had surpassed the universe level were clearly frightened after being awakened by the howl. Even their squeaks were trembling. The Realm Lord Golden Rat was horrified when he saw this. His body was still paralyzed in the void, but he screamed as if he had seen a ghost. This is impossible. Ling Hu Chong, even the immortal patriarchs are frightened to this extent. You cheated. So the immortal grade is after the universe grade? It does sound very high and mighty, but... After saying that, Yi Xian turned his head to look at the ancient stars that were trembling. He curled his lips and said, however, the immortal ancestor of your spatial rat race isn't that great, but it's understandable. After all, he's a mouse. Even if he's immortal, he's still a little timid, so it's understandable. This was definitely a deliberate insult that would definitely be heard by the few immortal patriarchs of the space rat race who had been awakened by the squeak. However, Yi Xian didn't care at all. The headless infant corpse had already made its move. What else did he have to fear? Taking advantage of this opportunity, he would give the Space Rat clan a good beating and intimidate them. This clan was truly shameless. Even Sector Lord Old monsters were shameless. If he didn't give them a good scare, then in the future, even going against him in the alliance would be considered light. If there was any conflict of interest, they would definitely stab him in the back. This problem had to be solved. Otherwise, it would be a huge hidden danger in the future. But now, the headless infant corpse had only let out a vicious roar and revealed its might. In Yi Xian's eyes, it was clearly not enough. At the very least, it was far from enough to hurt these guys and make them remember it. Thinking of this, Yi Xian's eyes flashed and his face darkened. That's right, didn't you want to suppress this young master? Halfway through his words, Yi Xian paused and shifted his gaze away from the Sector Lord Golden Rat to the ancient stars that were trembling. He sneered, now that your Space Rat clan's immortal ancestor has awakened, his name is very resounding and frightening, isn't it time for one to jump out? This young master will kill him on the spot. Little friend, it's a misunderstanding, I didn't mean that, don't be impulsive. We don't know anything, it's none of our business, bam. Rumble. Just as Yi Xian finished speaking, without waiting for the Sector Lord Golden Rat to make a sound, the Space Rat clan's immortal ancestor, who had been trembling in fear, all began to explain in panic. Unfortunately, the headless infant corpse's temper had never been good. How could it listen to these words? In addition, this time, it could be said that it was deliberately forced to make a move by Yi Xian's fearless attitude. It was definitely angry in its heart. Although it couldn't vent it on Yi Xian, it didn't care about the others. Just a vicious roar was not enough to vent its anger. Since it had made a move, it had to spill some blood to be worthy of itself. It was obvious that it didn't care about the Sector Lord Golden Rat at all. It wasn't even interested in making a move. As a result, one of the Space Rat clan's immortal ancestors suffered a calamity. Before they could finish their explanation, a huge explosion suddenly soared into the sky. An ancient star in the distance exploded into a bloody mist, and even the star cracked open. So easily, an immortal-level Space Rat clan bloodline ancestor. He was instantly killed, his body and soul destroyed. However, it was only this one, there had to be a limit to its deterrence. The headless infant corpse had clearly guessed Yi Xian's purpose, so it didn't attack again. Even the vicious roar disappeared. The burning sensation on his left chest quickly dissipated. Obviously, this was the rhythm of the headless infant corpse falling into a deep sleep once again. At the same time, in the other ancient stars, incomparably terrified screams came again. This time, the trembling feeling was even stronger. In the blink of an eye, an immortal-level space rat great ancestor with the same cultivation base as them was annihilated so easily. This was absolutely horrifying. The few immortal-level space rat great ancestors who were lucky enough to survive were so scared that they didn't even dare to beg for mercy. In the opposite void, the Sector Lord Golden Rat's situation was even worse. At this moment, he was still sitting in the void, his mouth wide open, his eyes wide, and his face covered with golden fur was as pale as a sheet of paper. It was unknown how he did it, but Yi Xian was amazed. Instant kill of an immortal-level ancestor? Tian. Heavens! At the very least, it has to be a desolate era almighty. Amidst the shock, the Realm Master's golden rat seemed to have gone stupid as he stared blankly at Yi Xian. He muttered to himself as his body trembled as if he was sifting grain. An immortal-level bloodline ancestor had disappeared just like that. To him, this matter was like the collapse of the sky. The degree of shock was already he couldn't describe it in words. Now, he finally realized what kind of terrifying existence he had provoked. No wonder the Demon Emperor, the Mad Mosquito Demon, and the Old Ghost Mosquito Demon were so embarrassed in front of him. He had already noticed this, but he had forgotten about it. Now, he had actually offended this murderous god who had a primordial almighty behind him. How could this just be a disaster of extermination? If the god of slaughter in front of him was willing, not only would the entire space rat clan outside be annihilated in an instant, even this rat ruins cave, which represented the foundation of the space rat clan's bloodline, would not be able to escape this disaster. Thinking of this, the Realm Master's golden rat shuddered and finally returned to its senses. It was freed from that dazed state of stupefaction. Chapter 38-42. On the other side of the abyss outside of the rat ruins. Grand Elder Mo and Grand Elder Mo were standing next to the abyss with worried expressions. Their gazes were fixed on the abyss below, but they couldn't see the end. All they could see was darkness. Beside them, the patriarch of the spatial rat clan, Shu Dong, and the chief elder of the clan, Shu Qiansui, were sitting cross-legged. There was a small table in front of them, and they were drinking. There were several plates of spirit fruits and spirit wine on the table. The two appeared to be happy and content, forming a sharp contrast to the worried Grand Elder Mo and Grand Elder Mo. The reason the two of them had been staying here was to watch Grand Elder Mo and Grand Elder Mo. Although the two of them did not know the details of the plan the Realm Lord's golden mice would carry out after entering the rat ruins, they could basically guess some of it. Moreover, before the Realm Master, the golden mouse, brought Yi Xian and leaped into the abyss in front of them, it had secretly sent a sound transmission to the two of them, indicating that if there were any unusual movements within the rat ruins and the two of them couldn't hold themselves back, then they could take down the two of them depending on the situation. This was clearly a hint that the Realm Lord's golden rat would make a move against young Lord Linghu in the rat ruins. In fact, this was what Shu Wandong and Shu Qiansui wanted to see. They didn't have a good impression of this so-called young Lord Linghu and the demon tribe. It could even be said that they were extremely resentful. After all, their Dao child, Shu Wushuang, had died at the hands of young Lord Linghu. It could be said that Shu Wantong and Shu Qiansui had been waiting impatiently for a long time. They were waiting for some strange movements to occur in the rat ruins' heavenly abode. That would prove that the Realm Lord Golden Rat had already made his move, and they could seize the opportunity to capture Grand Elder Mo and Grand Elder Mo Qigong. This opportunity would soon arrive. Rumble, in the depths of the abyss below, there was a sudden rumbling sound, accompanied by a faint whistling sound. This was the sound of the headless infant corpse suddenly making a move. The infant corpse's whistling sound caused the entire rat ruins to tremble slightly. Although the power of this whistling sound didn't reach the void outside the rat ruins, the entire rat ruins was trembling. Naturally, the black abyss, which was connected to the rat ruins through a spatial passage, also reacted. Hearing this rumbling sound, Shu Wandong and Shu Qiansui were both surprised. It seemed that the Linghu brat had extraordinary means. He was most likely going all out inside. Even the black abyss, which was connected to the rat ruins grotto heaven through a spatial passageway, had produced such a commotion. It was clear how big the commotion inside the grotto heaven was. However, no matter how big the commotion was, it was nothing more than a dying struggle. Since the realm lord, the golden rat, had already made a move, then no matter how heaven-defying young Master Linghu's methods were, or how monstrous his talent was, he was destined to fall here. Regarding this point, both Shu Wandong and Shu Qiansui were incomparably certain. The first demon emperor, the mad mosquito monarch, and the old ghost mosquito butcher could not enter the rat ruins grotto heaven directly. Even if they could, they would die in the end. If something were to happen, any one of these existences would be able to suppress everything once they woke up. Because of this, Shu Wandong and Shu Qiansui were stunned for a moment before joy appeared on their faces. They had been waiting impatiently for a long time, and now they could finally make a move. Grandpa Mo and Grandpa Mo, who had been paying attention to the depths of the black abyss, suddenly had a change of expression. Yi Xian had been gone for almost 2 days, but there had been no response. At this moment, a loud rumbling sound came from the depths of the black abyss, and there was also a whistling sound. This was clearly the rhythm of the battle. Even if they couldn't be sure that it was related to Yi Xian, they couldn't relax at all. Come. They immediately turned to look at Shu Wandong and Shu Qiansui, demanding to enter the rat ruins grotto heaven to see what happened. Using this as an excuse, Shu Wandong and Shu Qiansui fell out on the spot. Their expressions suddenly changed, and they instantly became sinister as they let out a stern shout, presumptuous. Who do you two think you are? You dare to make such a request? Even your ancestor, the Devil Emperor, doesn't have the qualifications to enter my clan's ancestral grounds. You two ants who aren't even region lords actually dare to act so arrogantly. How can we convince the others if we don't capture you? As they spoke, the two old fellows had made a move at the first possible moment. However, it wasn't a means of crushing, and it was merely a means of restraining and suppressing. After all, no matter if it was Grandpa Mo or Grandpa Mo, both of them possessed extraordinary statuses, and they were higher-ups of the Demon Kin Imperial clan. Young Master Linghu was bound to be crushed and killed, so the Spatial Mouse clan had to at least keep these two higher-ups of the Demon Kin Imperial clan as hostages. Otherwise, how could they force the entire army of Demon Kin Imperial clan to leave behind their battleships and resources before obediently withdrawing from the Rat Ruin Stellar region? The two old fellows were region lords, whereas Grandpa Mo was merely at the peak of the 9th rank of the Starlord realm. In other words, he was only a quasi-region lord. Mo Qigong was even weaker, so they practically didn't have the slightest ability to resist the attacks of two region lords. They were restrained at the first possible moment, and they couldn't even struggle. Yes. At this moment, they'd practically shed all pretenses of cordiality. Grandpa Mo and Grandpa Mo's hearts sank as they realized that the situation was bad, and they instantly roared. Shameless scoundrels. Both of you actually went back on your word. What exactly happened to Linghu? Is your spatial rat clan seeking your own death? Don't make a mistake. How presumptuous. Before Grandpa Mo could finish roaring furiously, the patriarch of the Spatial Mouse clan, Shu Wandong, had suddenly shouted with a grim voice and interrupted him, and then a savage expression appeared on his face. Linghu? He's probably dead by now. As for the two of you. Ah. Shu Wandong's words had stopped abruptly when he spoke halfway. His mouth opened wide while a dumbstruck expression covered his face. His gaze moved past Grandpa Mo and Grandpa Mo to look towards the depths of Blackwater behind them. In his field of vision, there were two figures flashing swiftly from the depths of Blackwater. Who else could it be besides young Master Linghu and the Realm Lord, Jin Shu? But this wasn't the crux of the matter. The crux of the matter was, young Master Linghu wasn't just standing at the front with his hands behind his back while a cold and arrogant expression covered his face. On the other hand, the Realm Lord, Jin Shu, was following behind him with his back slightly bent while a fawning smile covered his face. That demeanor, that appearance, it was completely the posture of an old servant following behind his master. Chapter 38-43. Although Shu Wandong regained his senses in time, he immediately retracted his power and removed the restraints on Mo Qigong and Mo Qigong. But at this time, Yi Xian and the Realm Lord Golden Rat had already arrived above the black abyss. They were less than a kilometer away, so they had undoubtedly seen the scene. Although the two of them hadn't seen what had happened before, they could guess what had happened with a casual guess. Yi Xian's face instantly darkened, and a cold snort came from his nose. He thoroughly understood the shamelessness of the Space Rat clan. They were truly a shameless clan. When this cold grunt entered his ears, Gold Mouse was terrified to the point his soul almost left his body, and he was deeply afraid that he would suffer calamity as well. After all, an eternal bloodline ancestor had perished in the blink of an eye within the rat ruins abode, and he wasn't even worth a fart when compared to that ancestor. If that person really wanted to mess with him, he reckoned that a single roar from that existence would be enough to scatter his soul. While his heart trembled, the Realm Lord Golden Rat's face turned cold. Taking advantage of the fact that Yi Xian hadn't reacted yet, he rushed to the cliff at the edge of the black abyss. What the F***CK? You two old bastards, is this how you treat our allies and distinguished guests? This old man is so angry. Slap. Slap. The Realm Lord Golden Rat cursed in exasperation while raising his hand to slap Shu Wandong and Shu Qiansui. Moreover, his strength wasn't weak at all. Two dignified old fellows at the Region Lord realm were actually slapped to the point they spun in circles on the spot, and when they finally stopped with great difficulty, their faces were covered in dumbstruck expressions. This slap completely stunned Shu Wandong and Shu Qiansui. At this moment, their minds were in a mess, buzzing. They really couldn't understand why their ancestor was like this. Even if he couldn't suppress young Master Linghu, he shouldn't be so afraid of him, right? On the side, Mo Qigong and Mo Qigong also opened their mouths wide. At this time, their minds were also full of question marks. The old monsters of the Space Rat clan were actually slapped in front of them. This was 2F** King Unreal. After a cup of tea's time, in the Imperial Palace of the Space Rat clan on the Rat Ruins planet, Yi Xian, Mo Qigong, and Mo Qigong had just sat down in the palace under the Realm Lord Golden Rat's extremely attentive guidance. As soon as they sat down, the Realm Lord Golden Rat kept flipping his hand as if fawning, taking out some rare spirit fruits and spirit wine from his storage treasure. These were all things that he couldn't bear to take out before, but now he took them out as if they were free, fawning over presented them to Yi Xian. A standard servant's conduct that couldn't be any more standard. In the face of all this, Grand Elder Mo and Grand Elder Mo were completely numb. Even now, their faces were still sluggish. As for Shu Wandong and Shu Qiansui, who still had a red handprint on their faces, they stood awkwardly in the distance, not daring to sit down at all. They just stared blankly at the old ancestor serving them like slaves. The faces of Yi Xian and the other two were filled with hopelessness. At this moment, they must have begun to doubt life. In the entire palace, only Yi Xian was calm, as if everything was supposed to be like this. He was leisurely enjoying all kinds of rare spirit fruits and spirit wine, happy and contented. When he was almost done eating, he raised his eyelids slightly and said casually, "Okay, everyone sit down. We are allies, don't be too polite. Also, it's time to discuss the next step of the plan." Realm Lord Golden Rat answered in a panic, and sat down carefully with Shu Wandong and Shu Qigong. Yes, little friend, you're right. You can make the decision. This venerable one. No, this old man will do as you say, without a second word. Senior, you're too serious. You're the ancestor of a clan. This kind of hard work on the battlefield, we'll do it. Yi Xian nodded his head, then changed the topic and continued, the Devil Cultivator's expedition this time will not stop. The various races of the first universe must unite. Now that the Devil Cultivator and the Space Rat race are allies, isn't there a saying in the first universe that the top 3 races are? Since that's the case, the next goal is fine. Go to the Hell Ant clan. What do you think, senior? After saying that, Yi Xian turned to look at the Realm Lord Golden Rat, who was smiling. No problem, little friend, I'll hit whoever you want. This old man can't kill him. The Realm Lord Golden Rat did not even think about it and immediately agreed. A ferocious look appeared on his face, as if he was a golden fighter. Seeing this, Shu Wandong and Shu Qiansui were dumbfounded. Their eyes were filled with stars. I said you don't need to do anything. Yi Xian frowned and deliberately looked a little impatient. The Realm Lord Golden Rat quickly shut up and even raised his hand to lightly slap his face. Seeing this scene, Shu Wandong and Shu Qiansui felt a buzz in their heads and almost fainted on the spot. This was the effect that Yi Xian wanted. He didn't know if the Realm Lord Golden Rat would tell these two old guys the truth about everything that happened in the rat ruins, but Yi Xian was going to take one of them away. Therefore, he had to give them a good beating so that they wouldn't be disobedient. After calculating in his heart, Yi Xian changed the topic and made a decision on the spot. Alright, Senior, as the ancestor of a clan, just stay in the clan. Senior Shu Wandong is the clan leader, so it's not appropriate for him to go to war. Elder Qiansui will lead a space mouse race fleet and form a formation with this young master and the demon's army of millions. The allied forces will jointly suppress the Hell Ant clan. At this point, Yi Xian turned to look at Shu Qiansui and asked, as for the time for the army to mobilize. Within a day, can the Space Mouse Race's expedition army be assembled? The latter was still a little confused. He opened his mouth but couldn't say a word. His eyes were wide open as if he was stupid. No problem, it's enough, one day is enough. On the side, the Realm Lord Golden Rat quickly took over the conversation. As he spoke, he fiercely glared at Shu Qiansui and scolded, "Old bastard, have you been kicked in the head by a donkey? What are you standing there for? Didn't you hear little friend talking to you? I'm warning you, this time when you lead the army out, you must listen to little friend Ling Hu's orders. If I find out that you're complying in the slightest or slacking off, I'll personally slap you to death when I return to the clan." A day later, after entering the rat ruined star field and stopping in the void outside the atmosphere of the Space Mouse Race's ancestral land for 2 days, the demon's army of millions of battleships all turned around and headed out of the rat ruined star field. Chapter 3844. As the demon army with tens of millions of battleships turned around and sailed out of the rat ruined star field, the higher-ups of the various scout fleets in the first universe, who had been waiting outside the rat ruined star field for the past 2 days, were stunned for a moment. Then, they heaved a sigh of relief. Sigh. In their opinion, this peace talk was clearly over. The final result was that the demon army had retreated, and its pace of dominating the first universe was finally stopped by the Space Rat clan. For these slave clans, this was obviously great news. This was because if the Space Mouse clan made concessions in this peace negotiation, then only the Hell Ant clan among the top 3 clans of the first universe's slave clans would have the ability to stop the demon from dominating to a certain extent. If the Space Rat clan remained neutral and did not participate in this matter, then the Hell Ant clan had a chance to stop the demon army. However, if the Space Rat clan and the demon army formed an alliance and participated in this expedition, then the Hell Ant clan would be in danger. Once the Hell Ant clan fell into the trap, the top 3 slave clans in the first universe would combine forces, and none of the other clans in the first universe would be able to stop the demon army from dominating. This situation was exactly what they did not want to see. For the various clans in the first universe, they had been enslaved by the Tianji clan. Now that the Tianji clan had withdrawn from the world and moved away, they had just regained their freedom. Who would be willing to immediately become a subordinate slave of the demon army under such circumstances? Therefore, it was definitely a happy ending for the demon dwellers to be stopped in their tracks. Of course, this did not include the demon dwellers. This was not something that the other slave clans would care about. With this kind of joy, the various scout fleets that had been lying in wait outside the rat ruined star zone for the past few days to pay close attention to the subsequent development of the situation were basically ready to return home. They had to report this great news to their respective clans as soon as possible. After all, this time, the demons suddenly sent troops to suppress the Space Rat clan. They had an ulterior motive, which had already shocked the core higher-ups of the first universe's servant clans to the point that they couldn't sit still. It was also at this moment that the upper echelons of a scout fleet saw an unexpected scene with sharp eyes. After being stunned for a moment, they immediately exclaimed softly, causing a wave of exclamations. "Look, behind the 10 million battleships of the Devil Dwellers, there seems to be a fleet with a scale of 3 to 4 million. This is almost half of all the battleships of the Space Mouse clan. What's the situation? Could it be that the peace talks are not over yet? But if that was the case, why did the Spatial Mouse clan send out nearly half of their army? Do you want to continue the war with the demons? Cut the crap. Can't you see that the demons' 10 million battleships are retreating from the rat-ruined starfield? If they want to continue fighting, why would the Devil Dwellers retreat? Heavens, this is not a retreat, this is an expedition. The demons and the space rats have reached an agreement. The latter has been roped in and dispatched nearly half of their army to join the demons' crusade army. This is the rhythm of rushing to the next target. It's over. It's over. The demon dwellers and the space rats have joined hands. The new overlord of the first universe is about to appear. Along with these exclamations, a huge starry sky battleship army with a total military strength of 14 million slowly sailed out of the rat-ruined star field and began to assemble at the edge of the star field. The demon dwellers' 10 million army. And the space rats' nearly 4 million battleships that followed behind. At this time, the battleships of the two clans gathered together to form a terrifying army, completely disintegrating the last trace of hope in the hearts of the commanders of the scout fleets of the various clans in the distant void. The demon dwellers and the space rats had joined hands. Moreover, judging from the formation of the entire army, this alliance was obviously led by the demon dwellers, while the 4 million battleships of the space rats were just following on the right side, like vassals. This was definitely a super heavy bomb, and there was no doubt that it explained a problem. That was, the demons' conquest of the first universe's races had not been stopped. Although the Space Mouse clan had not fallen, they had been persuaded by the demon and willingly became the vassal of the demon's conquest of the various races. There must be a deal between them. The demon dwellers had promised them benefits, but no one knew what they were. In fact, for the commanders of the scout fleets of the various clans in the first universe, this was actually not important. The important thing was that the demon dwellers' army was about to embark on another journey. If there were no accidents, the new overlord of the first universe was basically inevitable. Even the commanders of the various clan scout fleets had basically guessed which clan the army of 14 million battleships assembled by the demon dwellers and the space rats would send troops to conquer next. Almost without much hesitation, the scout fleet from the Hell Ants turned around and left immediately, performing a space jump and disappearing directly. They would rush all the way at the fastest speed to report this shocking news back to their clans. This was because even a fool could guess that the next target of this terrifying army of the demon dwellers and the space rats would definitely be one of the top 3 clans in the first universe, the Hell Ants. In fact, it wasn't just the Hell Ant clan scout fleet. After a brief moment of shock, the commanders of the scout fleets of the other first universe's slave clans that were waiting in the distant void outside the rat-ruined starfield also issued orders one after another. Return to your clans immediately. Even the second space battle of the demon dwellers' army in the Hell Ants' ancestral land, the Nether Ant star field, was not in the mood to investigate at this moment. There was basically no suspense in the result. In the face of the 14 million battleships of the demon dwellers and the space rats, the Hell Ants could not resist at all and would definitely be taken down in the end. The day when the top 3 clans would unite as a force was not far away. For all the other slave clans, this was tantamount to a bolt from the blue. They had to return to their clans immediately and report back the information, so that their clans could make countermeasures to deal with this matter and try to buy as much time as possible. Rumble. Boom. As the scout fleets of the various clans in the distant void retreated one after another, in the void at the edge of the rat-ruined star field, the 14 million battleships that had been assembled were also activated under Grandpa Mo's order and sailed into the distance in a grandiose manner. The Starry Sky. Chapter 3845. The Hell Ant Star area was the ancestral land of the Hell Ant clan. However, this star area was also called the Nether Ant Star area because according to legend, the bloodline of the Hell Ants originated from the Nether Ants of the Primordial Age. The nether ants were the same as the void rats. They belonged to a mysterious clan from the primordial age. The real nether ants and void rats had long gone extinct in the present world. According to legend, the true underworld ants were almost completely undying and indestructible. Of course, this was a relative statement, referring to the fact that conventional methods were no longer able to threaten their existence. However, all living things in the world had their natural enemies. Since the nether ants had already vanished without a trace in the current world and were suspected to have gone extinct long ago, then, during the primordial era, there were surely living beings that were their natural enemies. It was a creature said to have lived in the legendary nether prison. Its whole body was covered in black flames. The nether ants were most famous for their shell, which was called the nether armor. Every inch of the surface of the nether armor was covered in black flames. These flames came from the nether realm and eroded everything in the world. Even the primordial spirit and consciousness could not resist and directly burned the soul. Compared to the infernal ant, the hell ant didn't have the terrifying infernal flame, but it could secrete a kind of black liquid inside its body. This liquid was extremely cold and had no temperature, but even the hardest undying void metal couldn't resist this kind of liquid. The corrosion of the hell ant liquid. After a long time, it would definitely be eroded and penetrated. Even Yi Xian's indestructible glass armor, if nothing unexpected happened, theoretically speaking, it wouldn't be able to withstand the bites of the hell ants. It should be known that even the void-swallowing beast, which was known as the void soldier ladle, could not bite through the indestructible void metal. However, if Yi Xian's indestructible glass armor, which was mixed with a piece of indestructible void metal, encountered a large group of hell ants, the result would most likely be a group of hell ants. Ants biting an elephant would still end up in tragedy. The reason why the hell ants could become one of the top 3 servant clans in the second universe was similar to the void rats. This clan's reproduction ability was also terrifying and their numbers were too large. The entire underworld ant star region was almost 3 times the size of the demon fiend star region. Every star in the underworld ant star region was inhabited by a large number of hell ants. This kind of life form had very low requirements for the environment. Even if it was not a habitable star but an abandoned mineral star, they could still roam freely. Another reason why they were able to become one of the top 3 races was similar to the space mouse. It was because their bloodline was extremely valued by the Heaven's Legacy race. The hell ant's body secreted a terrifying corrosive black liquid, hell ant liquid. To the Heaven's Legacy race, this was a rare material that was absolutely necessary for industrial construction. This was because it could be used to break down almost any kind of hard metal. Moreover, this hellish ant elixir had many other miraculous uses, including a miraculous tempering effect on the bodies of the Heaven's Legacy race members. Moreover, even in the 2 camps of the human race in the 3rd universe, the hell ant liquid secreted by the hell ants was a sacred body tempering product that was hard to find, especially for starry sky powerhouses who walked the path of body tempering. As for the top families who researched gene cultivation fluid, they were even more eager to obtain it. This was because the hell ant liquid, after being processed and added to the cultivation fluid, could greatly improve its effect. It was said that some powerful beings of the universe directly used the hell ant liquid to cut off their hair and purify their marrow, and use it to forge their body. The hell ant liquid was secreted by every hell ant powerhouse. Of course, the quality of the hell ant liquid secreted by their bodies was also different due to the different cultivation realms. After all, it came from the main body of different life forms. In addition to the hell ant liquid, the most precious thing in the hell ant clan was actually the underworld liquid in the underworld pool. Before Yi Xian captured the infernal ant clan's heaven and earth Taoist, Yi Jiuming, he had heard from him that every year, Yi Jiuming would be able to obtain 10 drops of nether liquid from the Holy Land's nether pool to baptize his ant armor. As time passed, although the black ant armor on Yi Jiuming's body had yet to evolve to the level of the nether ant clan's unique nether armor, which was able to produce black nether flames, its hardness was truly outrageous. Yi Xian used the Shenong pestle to transform into a big-headed black club and struck it with all his might, not leaving it behind. It left a small mark. Yi Xian could be said to be deeply affected by Yi Jiuming's hard black armor. At that time, the shock this opponent gave Yi Xian was almost the same as that of Shi Wanjin, who possessed the 9 berserk lion transformations and had already comprehended the 4th transformation. Once Shi Wanjin's 4th transformation was activated, he could instantly obtain a bloodline true body that was 100,000 zhang tall. His blood and qi were terrifyingly abundant, and he was simply an unkillable cockroach. Although Yi Juming did not have that ability, his black armor was too hard. Even the Shenong pestle, the accessory of the Shenong cauldron, could not leave a white mark on it. This was enough to explain the problem. Shi Wanjin only got 10 drops of underworld liquid every year, and he could obtain such a hard black armor. It was obvious that this underworld liquid was extraordinary. Otherwise, the underworld pool would not be called the Hell Ant Clan's Holy Land. No one had ever entered it. In this expedition against the infernal ant race, other than subduing them like the spatial rat race and bringing them into his own alliance, Yi Xian didn't plan on letting go of the underworld liquid in the underworld pool, which was the underworld ant race. However, this matter gave him a headache. After all, on one hand, he had to recruit people into his alliance, and on the other hand, he had to scheme for the Holy Land of the Hell Ant Clan. No matter how he thought about it, these two matters conflicted with each other. If he wanted to have the best of both worlds, he had to come up with a foolproof plan. Otherwise, he could only choose one of the two. If that was really the case, Yi Xian was not willing to accept it. Fortunately, there was still plenty of time. It was impossible for an army of 10 million battleships to travel from the Rat Ruin Star Field to the Underworld Ant Clan's ancestral land in the Underworld Ant Clan. It would take about half a month for them to arrive. After the army set off, Yi Xian spent an entire day thinking about this matter, but no matter how he thought about it, he could not come up with a perfect plan. Helpless, he could only temporarily put this matter to the back of his mind. There were still 13 to 14 days before the long journey would end. Yi Xian really did not want to waste this period of time. Bored, he simply went to an independent cabin on the top floor of the fleet's flagship, the West Expedition. He took out a large amount of cultivation resources and handed them all to the devouring system to absorb the energy. Then, he sat cross-legged in the cabin, closed his eyes, and began to cultivate in seclusion to break through. According to his experience, he had just broken through to a new realm with the help of the gene cultivation fluid. After stabilizing for a while, it was the best time to break through a small realm. There was basically no possibility of failure. Everything would happen naturally. Chapter 38-46. After breaking through another small realm, Yi Xian was excited, but he immediately shook his head and smiled bitterly. Because a strong sense of pressure suddenly descended upon them. Once he reached the great circle of the cosmic realm, he would have to use up the level 15 liquid he had. Now, he was already at the cosmic realm's second order, only 8 small steps away from the great circle of the cosmic realm. In other words, after 8 more small breakthroughs, Yi Xian would use 1 or 2 tubes of level 15 liquid and enter the universe realm. From then on, there would be no more gene cultivation liquid to use. Once he reached level 9, he could only stare at it helplessly, unable to break through, and his cultivation would stagnate. Unfortunately, after level 15 liquid, this kind of concoction method could no longer be used. According to Yi Xian's speculation, some methods and elements needed to be introduced to refine the flesh medicine. The Shenong cauldron was a treasure, so he was not in a hurry in this regard. The key was that using this method to refine level 16 liquid was still a new topic. He had no experience to refer to, so he needed time to explore. It seems that after this expedition against the Hell Ant Clan ends, this young master will not be able to participate in the subsequent crusades against the other clans of the First Universe. Helplessly, Yi Xian shook his head and sighed. I have to calm down and carefully deduce and study the method to concoct the level 16 liquid. Yes, it's concoction. After the level 16 liquid, I can only obtain it through this method. Fortunately, once the Hell Ant Clan is incorporated, the top 3 slave clans of the First Universe will be combined into one force. Even if all the other clans unite, the strength of the two sides will be evenly matched. With Grandpa Mo in charge of commanding, the Hell Ant Clan and the Space Mouse Clan will each send a domain Lord Old Monster. With them in charge, there will be no problem. However, I have to find a way to obtain the Hell Ant clan's nether liquid. This kind of thing is extremely extraordinary, just like the Een demon clan's innate cold Een spirit liquid. It is very difficult to find elsewhere in the world. Perhaps it will have a certain effect on refining level 16 liquid with the Shinong cauldron in the future. Thinking of this, Yi Xian's eyes flashed. No matter what, he had to obtain the Hell Ant clan's nether liquid. After pondering for a moment, he decided to start with Yi Juming and see if he could make a breakthrough. After all, Yi Juming was the universe Daoist of the Hell Ant clan, so he naturally knew more about the clan than Yi Xian. The Western expedition was a huge fortress with a diameter of 100,000 meters. Its interior was incomparably spacious due to the use of folded space. Yi Xian found a spacious area and waved his hand to bring out the farmer god cauldron. Of course, it was not in its complete form. It was only 1,000 meters in diameter. Otherwise, it would really explode. Then, in a flash, Yi Xian stepped into the Shinong cauldron and disappeared from the mouth of the cauldron. Ever since the native ferocious beasts were brought out of the root of all evil star region, the millions of native ferocious beasts had basically been living inside the farmer god cauldron. For this expedition, Yi Xian bringing the farmer god cauldron was equivalent to bringing an army of millions of ferocious beasts. It was the same for the primordial porcupine and the primordial hairy tortoise. If it were not for the war in the outside world, they would not be willing to leave the space inside the farmer god cauldron. When these native ferocious beasts were in the root of all evil star region, they had fought many battles. Almost every ferocious beast had stored some bloodline true bodies of the masters of various races in the Federation of the Second Universe. These were all meat ingredients. Originally, they had kept these meat ingredients in their storage magic treasures because they wanted to wait for Yi Xian to roast them when he was free. However, now that they were in the farmer god cauldron and the strange tricolor flames were right in front of them, they could do it themselves. Yi Xian had deliberately released tens of thousands of farmer god tricolor flames of different diameters in the central region of the farmer god cauldron space. When these native ferocious beasts needed to roast their meat, they could take out their own ingredients and find a suitable farmer god tricolor flames and roast them themselves. The reason why Yi Xian's meat had made them drool before was not because of how good Yi Xian's roasting skills were, or what kind of secret ingredients he had in his hands. He did not need those. The power and effect of the farmer god tricolor flames was the best catalyst. Even ordinary meat could instantly become a top-grade delicacy after being roasted by the farmer god tricolor flames. After discovering this, the millions of ferocious beasts were immediately overjoyed. They identified the space inside the farmer god cauldron and refused to leave. Although there were only about 10,000 farmer god tricolor flames, even if the millions of ferocious beasts wanted to roast their meat at the same time, there would only be a few hundred spots lined up next to each flame pillar. At most, they would have to wait for half a day before it was their turn. Such a scene was truly spectacular. The millions of native ferocious beasts were all holding various kinds of precious meat in their hands. They lined up in an orderly manner in front of the tricolor flames that rushed out of the volcano crater, waiting for their meat to be roasted. If this was recorded and sent out, it was estimated that the three universes would be in an uproar. Young Master Ling Hu's methods were too heaven-defying. The entire native ferocious beasts, the root of all evil, had been trained by him into a standard foodie. After Yi Xian entered the farmer god cauldron, the first thing he saw was this scene. Even though he already knew that it might be such a scene, seeing it with his own eyes, Yi Xian was still a little stunned. This was because he clearly saw that in front of the two largest tricolor flames, the primordial porcupine and the primordial hare, were the primordial porcupine and the primordial hare. The tortoise was clearly at the front of the line, roasting its own meat while drooling. He didn't look like an old monster of a domain lord at all. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled bitterly. He didn't dare to stay here for long. With a flash of his figure, he directly came to the bottom plane of the central domain volcano and appeared in front of the mountain wall cage where Yi Juming, Meng Mashan, and Shi Wanjin were imprisoned. At this moment, Shi Wanjin was still in a deep sleep. His Taoist foundation had been destroyed, but Yi Xian was soft-hearted last time and gave him some nourishing things. Looking at him now, he should be absorbing and recovering. Although his Taoist foundation had been taken away and there was no hope for him to recover, if he was lucky, he could at least recover some of his cultivation base. Strength. At least he wouldn't die or become a cripple. After all, this brat had now become Yi Xian's servant. If he really didn't care, Yi Xian's heart would be a little bit unbearable. In the other two cages, Yi Jiuming and Meng Moshan were sitting on the ground in the cages with a lifeless face. Both of them had a pair of big panda eyes and deep eye circles. At first glance, it was obvious that they hadn't had a good sleep recently. It was estimated that they hadn't rested at all. Suddenly looking up and seeing Yi Xian coming, Yi Jiuming and Meng Moshan were stunned for a moment, and then their bodies shook together. They hurriedly got up in a panic, holding the bars of the cages in their hands, and begging Yi Xian, "Fellow cultivator Xiaohu, no, young master, just let us go like farts. We can't live here. When I look up, millions of fierce beasts are lining up to roast meat. It's so scary." Chapter 38-47. These two guys were obviously scared out of their wits. As soon as they saw Yi Xian, it was as if they had seen their savior. The first thing they did was to jump on the pillars of the cage, wishing they could squeeze out of the narrow gaps between the pillars. They kept talking, and in the end, before Yi Xian could even respond, they had already sworn oaths. Moreover, they swore that they would be loyal to Yi Xian from now on. Otherwise, their fates would be very miserable. Yi Xian shuddered at the thought of it. It seemed that it was true. No one in the starry sky dared to make a joke of a Tao oath. Even though there were only heavenly laws in the three universes today and there was no heavenly will, the Tao oath was the most feared invisible sword above the heads of the starry sky masters. Of course, the reason why Yi Jiuming and Meng Moshan surrendered so readily this time was not only because they were frightened by the millions of fierce beasts roasting meat around the crater day and night, but also because of the despair in their hearts. Last time, they had seen with their own eyes that Shi Wanjin, who had sworn to die, was turned into a little sheep in the blink of an eye by some terrifying means of Yi Xian. Since then, these two guys had not rested much. Every time they closed their eyes, they would have nightmares. In fact, Yi Xian's slave seal was only a preliminary mutation at present and could not be used on starry sky masters at all. Previously, Shi Wanjin's Tao foundation had been destroyed and his cultivation had been completely lost, so he was lucky enough to succeed. If he really used it on them, there would be no possibility of success. But they did not know this. In the opinion of Yi Jiuming and Meng Moshan, if they took the initiative to swear allegiance, they could at least retain their status as subordinates and not slaves. Compared with Shi Wanjin, who had lost his Tao foundation and became a slave, the two of them had no damage to their Tao foundation and their cultivation was still the same. Moreover, they had only sworn allegiance to him, so they were not slaves. This was absolutely a great blessing. Of course, this was only their wishful thinking at present. Whether young Master Linghu would agree or not was still uncertain. It was precisely because of this that Yi Jiuming and Meng Moshan immediately shut their mouths after swearing the Tao oath. They held on to the bars of the cage and looked at Yi Xian with pitiful eyes. She was extremely nervous. She was afraid that he would flatly refuse. If that happened, it would really be over. Yi Xian was not in a hurry to agree. He fell into deep thought. Both Yi Jiuming and Meng Moshan had already made a Tao oath, so there was naturally no need to doubt the authenticity of this matter. Moreover, Yi Xian hadn't taken away their Tao foundations, so there was no need for them to doubt the authenticity of this matter. Moreover, Yi Xian hadn't taken away their Tao foundations. It was not impossible for them to be loyal to their own race. However, this matter required a reasonable method. Otherwise, if they were suddenly released, even if the two of them returned to their respective clans, they would be secretly monitored and listed as suspects who had defected to the enemy. This was indeed a problem, but Yi Xian quickly understood. Putting aside the heaven and earth Tao child of the giant ferocious clan, Meng Moshan, at the very least, if he wanted Yi Jiuming to return to his clan, this was the best opportunity. Taking advantage of the alliance with the Hell Ant clan, expressing goodwill to the other party and handing over the heaven and earth Tao child of the Hell Ant clan, who was imprisoned in his hands, was originally a reasonable thing to do. However, just sending one of his own pawns to the Hell Ant clan was clearly far from enough for Yi Xian. Yi Xian's main goal in coming to interrogate Yi Juming this time was actually the underworld liquid in the holy land of the underworld pool. Originally, I wanted to come down and take you out, forcing out the bloodline true body, so that Brother Pig and Brother Turtle could roast some wine. Since the oath has been made, then let's drop this matter. Yi Xian held back his laughter in his heart, but his face was extremely serious, even revealing a cold intent. These simple words almost scared the two fellows in the cage to the ground. Fortunately, they heard Yi Xian say that he would drop this matter, so they resisted. Otherwise, they might have fainted on the spot. Don't worry, I won't let the fierce beast brothers come down to harass you. Yi Xian nodded, then turned to look at Yi Juming on the other side. As for Yi Juming, this young master happens to be in the Nether Ant Star domain right now, so I can send you back now. However, this young master came to the nest of the Hell Ant clan this time with a purpose. Since you have already pledged your loyalty to this young master, Since you have pledged your loyalty, then take this opportunity to prove yourself. Hearing that Yi Xian happened to be in the Nether Ant Star domain right now, Yi Juming was stunned. Then, he gritted his teeth and steeled his heart. Young master, if there's anything you need, feel free to tell me. Although he was still unwilling to harm his clan, Yi Juming also knew that even without his help, with young Master Ling Hu's monstrous methods, he would definitely succeed in the end no matter what scheme he had. Including the fact that he had come to the Hell Ant clan this time and coveted a certain treasure. Including the fact that he needed Yi Juming's help. If Yi Juming did not agree, he would directly use the secret technique that he had used to deal with Shi Wanjin. It was straightforward and saved him trouble. Yi Juming was a smart person. Although his loyalty to his clan was still there, he could clearly see the situation. The only thing in his mind now was to act as a buffer between his clan and Ling Hu Chong, the young master he had just recognized. Now that young Master Ling Hu had come to the Nether Ant Star domain, he would definitely not give up without some gains. After weighing the pros and cons, he made a decision to help young Master Ling Hu get what he wanted and send this great Buddha away as soon as possible. Thinking of this, Yi Juming asked tentatively, "Young master, the purpose of your visit to the Hell Ant clan, Nether Liquid?" Since they were on the same side, even if Yi Juming was the Daoist of the Hell Ant clan, Yi Xian did not hide anything. He waved his hand and said, "Originally, I wanted to empty it like the Een Demon clan's holy land Een Pool, but now, for your sake, this young master will only take half." "All right." Pooh! Yi Juming was so shocked that he almost vomited blood on the spot. His expression immediately became strange as he muttered, "There is no such thing as all and half. The Nether Pool is different from the Een Pool of the Een Demon clan. It is not a ready-made pool of Nether Liquid. The Nether Liquid is secreted from the remains of the Nether Ancestor. In the Hell Ant clan's holy land Nether Pool, there are 2 Nether Ancestor remains. These 2 Nether Ancestor remains will drip a drop of Nether Liquid every day. In other words, the entire Hell Ant clan only produces slightly more than 700 drops every year." Chapter 38-48. Underworld Ancestors Remains? There are 2 of them? That's great. Before Yi Juming could finish, Yi Xian's eyes lit up. He nodded and continued, "That's great. Keep one and take the other. Isn't that half of what I just said?" Pfft. This time, Yi Juming really vomited blood. His face was filled with shock as he stared blankly at Yi Xian. After confirming that he wasn't joking, he shook his head and bitterly smiled. Forget it. If you want to take one away, then take one away. As long as young master has the ability to take away the remains of the underworld ancestor, it's fine. At least you left one for my Hell Ant clan and didn't cut off the supply of underworld liquid." "What? You can't take it?" Yi Xian frowned. Then, as if he suddenly remembered something, he continued to ask, "By the way, what is this underworld ancestor?" "Underworld ant? Doesn't that mean that there are 2 bloodline primordial ancestors remains in the underworld pool of your Hell Ant clan? That's a primordial ancestor level existence. Of course it's not a real primordial underworld ant. It's a primordial ancestor level existence. It doesn't exist now, even if it's just a corpse, Yi Juming said seriously. But these two underworld ancestors aren't much different from the real primordial underworld ant. They're the first-generation descendants of the primordial underworld ant, the bloodline primordial ancestor of the Hell Ant clan. Although they're not real primordial underworld ants, they have the purest underworld ant bloodline. Their underworld armor is extremely tough. Even though they've been dead for countless years, they're still burning with black underworld flames. I'm sure you've heard of the underworld flames. Even the current Hell Ant clan's patriarch doesn't dare to touch it. Because of this, it's basically impossible to take the remains of these two underworld ancestors. They've been in the underworld pool for countless years. That's where they're buried. As for the nether liquid, it's actually the best hellish ant liquid. It's the secretion of the two underworld ancestors' remains. Although the two underworld ancestors have been dead for countless years, some functions of their remains are still functioning normally. That's why the nether liquid was created. So the nether liquid is the hellish ant liquid secreted by the nether ants, who are half a step away from the desolate era. Yi Xian nodded solemnly and said, although these are the remains of your race's bloodline ancestor, they've been dead for a long time. Besides, I'm not taking them away for other purposes, such as roasting them, but to collect the nether liquid. I'm refining a level 16 liquid. If I succeed, a tube of it will allow a Cosmos State expert to advance to the first level of the Star Lord state. According to my analysis of the characteristics of the nether liquid, the formula of the level 16 liquid should require the addition of the nether liquid. So, if you can help me take it away, I'll be able to refine it. I'll give you one of the netherworld race's skeletal remains after the level 16 liquid is formed. What? Level 16 liquid? Just as Yi Xian finished speaking, Yi Juming cried out involuntarily, "Young master, did you say something wrong? When you were in the First Universe's Science and Technology faction, the Tuoba family of the Heavenly War Empire, didn't you refine a level 12 gene cultivation fluid? The next level to be refined should be level 13. That's more like it." Young Master Linghu had risen to fame precisely because of what Yi Juming had told him. 80% of the Tuoba family's resources had been consumed by Yi Xian, who had appeared as Linghu's young master. In the end, he had successfully refined the level 11 and level 12 liquids. Yi Xian had given the formula and the finished product of the level 11 liquid to the Tuoba family, but he had only given one vial of the level 12 liquid. He had intended to leave the Heavenly War Empire without giving the formula. As a result, the head of the Tuoba family turned against him. In the end, Yi Xian demonstrated the Dongshu shuttle's killing array system, and the three wonders of pills, tools, and arrays were known throughout the three planes. Although it was already in the past, counting the time, it was actually only half a year ago. Therefore, it was no wonder that Yi Juming was so shocked. Half a year ago, he had just refined a level 12 liquid. Now, he said that he was going to refine a level 16 liquid. No one would believe this if they heard this. As a matter of fact, Yi Juming was both shocked and overjoyed. He was currently in the universe state, the 15th realm. The level 16 liquid was just right for him. It had to be noted that, under normal circumstances, it would take not only a long time to break through from the universe state to the Star Lord state, but also opportunities and luck. Although there were many Star Lords in the three planes of the universe, it was easy to understand when one thought about the large number of universe state experts. Only one Star Lord would appear in 1,000 universe state experts. The rest would never encounter such an opportunity to break through in their entire lives. Although Yi Juming was the universe state sex Dao child of the Hell Ant clan and had the support of his clan, it was almost inevitable that he would break through to the Star Lord state. Even so, it would take at least 100 years. However, if he was given a vial of the level 16 liquid, he would instantly become a Star Lord once he successfully broke through the shackles of his physical potential. That was the wonder of the gene cultivation liquid created by the eternal dynasty of the human race's science and technology camp. It had a unique temptation. Even though the gene cultivation liquid of the eternal dynasty was hard to come by, and the highest level known was only the level 12 liquid, using this method to cultivate would still promote there were still countless Star Lords who had evolved in terms of life level. It was too convenient. A vial of gene cultivation liquid represented a breakthrough in a major realm. The temptation was irresistible. I don't need to lie to you about this. Yi Xian saw that Yi Jiuming was excited. He smiled and took out a small space box from the undying world in his body. After opening it, there was a row of gene cultivation liquids in the box, from the level 10 liquid to the level 15 liquid. The 6 vials of gene cultivation liquids were different in color. Although they were motionless, there were countless tiny runes that looked like nanos appearing and disappearing at all times. When one's eyes sank slightly, it was as if one's entire mind was about to be pulled in. The aura vaguely revealed was even stronger than the previous one, making one's breath stop. Yi Jiuming and Meng Mashan's eyes were wide open. Level 9 liquids can be obtained in the Eternal Dynasty as long as one has the strength. As for the level 10 liquid, although the Tuoba family has already concocted it, there isn't much of it. It's difficult to find a vial on the market. While speaking, Yi Xian waved the small space box in his hand. There are 6 vials of gene cultivation liquids in here. This is a set, from the level 10 liquid to the level 15 liquid. They were all concocted by me. I still have a few sets of such high-level liquids that are no longer available on the market. This undoubtedly confirmed what Yi Xian had just said. The level 15 liquid was already completed. Naturally, the level 16 liquid would be concocted next. Chapter 38-49. Naturally, the Holy Land of the Hell Ant clan was not a place that could be entered casually. In fact, back when he was in the Space Rat clan, Yi Xian would not have had the opportunity to enter the forbidden ground of the Space Rat clan, the Rat Ruins Grotto Heaven. Of course, he could force his way in, but in that case, he would have to subdue the Hell Ant clan with violence. Although the combined forces of the demons and the Space Rat clan did not have the strength to do so, it would undoubtedly leave behind a hidden danger. Moreover, the Hell Ant clan might have a universe-level ancestor in hibernation. If he were to force his way in and alarm that level of existence, he would have no chance of winning unless the Headless Infant Corpse made a move. The Headless Infant Corpse was Yi Xian's greatest trump card and could not be used frequently. Therefore, Yi Xian basically planned to rope in the Hell Ant clan like the Space Rat clan. Since that was the case, he naturally could not force his way into the Holy Land of the Hell Ant clan unless there was an unforeseen event in the Holy Land. Moreover, Yi Xian had to be in the Hell Ant clan and had reached an agreement with them and become their ally. At that time, he would naturally have a reason to enter the Holy Land. As for taking the opportunity to obtain the remains of the Hell Ant clan's underworld ancestor, he would just have to act according to the circumstances. However, Yi Xian needed a spy in this matter, and Yi Jiuming was naturally the best candidate. After a brief discussion, the two of them came up with a preliminary plan. Then, Yi Xian left the internal space of the Farmer God Cauldron. After keeping the Farmer God Cauldron in his undying world, Yi Xian entered his cabin again. With the terrifying calculation ability of the devouring system, he deduced everything related to using the Farmer God Cauldron to refine the level 16 blood and flesh medicine. Soon, he was engrossed in it and forgot the passage of time. When Yi Xian came out of seclusion and walked out of his cabin, he discovered that they had already arrived at the underworld ant star field. The subjugation fleet took a short rest in the void outside the underworld ant star field. Then, with the millions of fortresses leading the way, they sailed into the underworld ant star field in a grandiose manner. Compared to the Rat Ruins galaxy, which was full of holes in the universe, the Nether Ant galaxy appeared to be very normal. In fact, it was not just normal, it was excessively normal. The void was the same, and so were the stars. However, the strange thing was that no matter if it was the abandoned mineral star or the inhabited star, the surface of the land was as if it had never been developed. There were almost no man-made structures. On the surface of the mineral stars, there were at most some mining pits. On the surface of the planets that were full of life, there were oceans, continents, and forests. There was not a single building to be seen. But in fact, these planets were indeed the habitat of the hellish ant clan. The reason why he couldn't see a single hell ant was because they were all underground. The worlds below the surface of these planets were the nests of the hell ants. Yi Xian, the higher-ups of the fleet, Grandpa Mo Qigong, and the others had long known about this. Therefore, as they followed the fleet into the Nether Ant star domain, they saw the stars along the way. Whether it was abandoned or stars or life stars, Lu Biao couldn't see any traces of the infernal ant clan. They were not surprised at all. What really surprised them was that there was not a single warship in the void after they entered the Nether Ant galaxy. It seemed that the entire Hell Ant clan had gone into hiding and given up all resistance, so that the entire huge punitive army could march straight into the city. The news of everything that had happened in the Space Rat clan must have already been sent to the Hell Ant clan. However, the current situation was so strange that it immediately caused Yi Xian and the others to be suspicious. They couldn't figure out what exactly the Hell Ant clan was doing. According to the star map, the Nether Ant planet, the headquarters of the Hell Ant clan, is in the void more than 20 million kilometers ahead. We have already traveled more than 10 million kilometers into the Nether Ant galaxy, but we haven't seen a single warship of the Hell Ant clan. Not even a single member of the Hell Ant clan. In the command cabin on the top floor of the main flagship fortress, West Expedition, Grandpa Mo frowned with a puzzled look on his face. What exactly are the higher-ups of the Hell Ant clan up to? Are they planning to have a final battle with us on the Nether Ant planet? In short, they won't migrate like the Heaven's Legacy clan. Yi Xian nodded. He was very sure of this because he had learned some things from Yi Jiuming. The Hell Ant clan's holy land was not like the Space Rat clan's forbidden ground, the Rat Ruins Grotto Heaven. It was a small, hidden space. It was in the depths of the underground nest of the Hell Ant planet. The remains of the two nether ancestors of the Hell Ant clan, who could secrete a drop of nether liquid every day, could not be taken away because they were burning with black nether flames. The Hell Ant clan would not give up the remains of the two nether ancestors no matter what. Therefore, it was impossible for the entire clan to migrate. Demon, Linghu, and fellow Taoists of the Space Rat clan, welcome to the Hell Ant clan. What brings you here? Right at this moment, a deep and dignified old voice came from the end of the void. Grandpa Mo, who was beside Yi Xian, changed his expression immediately. He exclaimed, "Realm Lord Old Monster. The Hell Ant clan is indeed prepared. They sense such a powerful existence right away. What do they want? So what if they're realm lords? Don't forget that we can have the projections of 4 realm lords here at any time." Yi Xian smiled casually and fearlessly. He stepped out of the main flagship fortress, West Punitive Expedition. Grandpa Mo and the rest of the demons followed closely behind him. In the fleet of the Space Rat clan on the right side of the huge warship army, Xu Qiansui, the leader of the Space Rat clan, stepped out of the flagship fortress with a few star lords and stood in the void to show support. Yi Xian was obviously counting the Realm Lord Golden Rat of the Space Rat clan when he mentioned the 4 realm lords who could arrive at any time. There were already the Demon Emperor, the Mad Mosquito Emperor, and Mosquito Butcher. Including him, there would be 4 realm lords on this day. With the descent of the projection clones of these 4 Sector Lord level old freaks, even if the other party sent out 2 Sector Lord level old freaks at the same time and used their true bodies to confront the subjugation army, they wouldn't be able to pose any threat. Furthermore, the Sector Lord level nether ant that spoke up now was merely a single one. Therefore, Yi Xian was very confident. At this moment, he stepped out of the flagship fortress and went to the void outside. However, he didn't summon the Shinong Cauldron to protect himself like he did in the Space Rat clan's Rat Ruins planet zone. Chapter 3850. In the distance, at the end of the void, a few figures quickly appeared, stepping on the void. These experts were all the higher-ups of the Hell Ant clan, but at this moment, they did not reveal their bloodline true bodies. They appeared in human form. The leader was a Sector Lord old monster named Ant Blood Dome. The aura within his body was faintly discernible, displaying the supreme aura of a Sector Lord. Following him were 2 old monsters at the State Lord level. They were the clan leader, Ant Song, and the clan leader, Ant Ba. Behind them were a few ordinary elders of the Hellish Ants, all of whom were Star Lords. Seniors of the Hellish Ants, I'm Linghu. Greetings. Since the main character had already appeared, he didn't seem to have any intention of starting a war. Yi Xian was certain in his heart. He cupped his hands towards the air in front of him, then continued, "This time, I didn't come to the infernal ant race with the intention of starting a war, but to discuss a grand plan with the infernal ant race. Since it's a grand plan, let's talk about it in detail. Linghu, my young friend, please come to the nest of my race's ancestral land." Ant Xueqiong, the sector lord, smiled casually. "I'll take my leave first. I'll wait for you in the nest." Then, he turned around and left with the experts of the hellish ants. They had come quickly and left even faster. The two parties had met for less than a minute. By the time Yi Xian and Grandpa Mo came back to their senses, the enemy was no longer at the end of the void. He had already returned to the nest on the hellish ant planet. Grandpa Mo frowned again and reminded Yi Xian, "That guy's attitude is a bit weird. We have to be careful. None of the sector lords are stupid. If there wasn't the precedent of the Space Rat clan, the Hell Ant clan's sector lord Old Monster might have played some tricks. However, with the precedent, he had a lot of things to consider. At the very least, he had to figure out the real reason why the Space Rat clan was unexpectedly subdued. I won't attack until then." Yi Xian lightly smiled and didn't mind. After that, he, Grand Elder Mo and Mo Qigong boarded the flagship of the Western expedition and followed them through the void. As for the other warships, they remained where they were. This was also a sign of their stance. An enormous planet with life soon appeared ahead of them as they flew at full speed. However, there were still no buildings on the surface of the planet. A Star Lord of the hellish ants was waiting outside the atmosphere. The West expedition stopped. Yi Xian, Grandpa Mo, Elder Mo, and the chief of the Space Rat clan, Rat Qiansui, stepped out of the battleship. The Space Mouse clan expert cupped his fists and turned around to lead the way. After a short while, they passed through the atmosphere, entered the interior of the star, and landed in a huge valley. There was a cave in the valley that was large enough to accommodate a fortress with a diameter of 100,000 meters. It was the entrance to the underground world of the Nether Ant planet. After entering, he realized that the underground space was even bigger. The whole planet was like a super fortress. The surface of the planet was just the hull, and the inside was the living space. The interior of the planet had been hollowed out. There were plains, canyons, and even oceans inside. It was quite a breathtaking sight. There were buildings inside the planet. Ant Xueqiong, the sector lord of the hellish ants, had already set up a banquet in a magnificent hall. He stood up to greet Yi Xian and the others when they arrived. The atmosphere was quite harmonious. It didn't look like a war was about to break out at all. Once they were seated, Ant Xueqiong went straight to the point and asked the most important question. "Everyone, may I ask what the relationship between the demons, young Master Linghu, and the Space Rat clan is?" "There's no hurry." Yi Xian waved his hand and said with a casual smile, "First of all, I have to make one thing clear. I don't mean any harm by coming here. This is a Dao disciple of my clan. I'm sending him out to show my attitude." As he spoke, Yi Xian activated the Shenong cauldron, which was only 100 meters long and stood at the center of the hall. Then, a man dashed out of the cauldron. It was none other than Yi Juming. Even Grandpa Mo Qigong, and the head of the Space Rat clan, Xu Qiansui, were surprised by this action. As for the hellish ants, when Ant Xueqiong saw the Shenong cauldron, his eyes narrowed. Then, he turned to look at Yi Juming, who was standing in the hall and looking around blankly. The latter's body was deliberately in a sorry state, and he was even slightly injured. However, his complexion was still good. At least, compared to the Dao disciples of the second universe, who were on their last breaths, it was a world of difference. Ant Xueqiong's expression relaxed as he waved his hand and said, "Go get a drop of underworld liquid and heal your injuries." Then, after Yi Juming left, Yi Xian waved his hand and put away the Shenong cauldron. Then, he cupped his hands towards Yi Xian and said, "Thank you, little friend Linghu, for showing mercy." The core higher-ups of the Hell Ant clan were obviously aware of the fact that the Heaven and Earth Dao children who had been redeemed by the various races of the second universe were all on their last breaths and had long been crippled. Because of this, when they saw Yi Juming return in one piece, other than Blood Ant Sky, the other high-ranking members of the Hell Ant clan who were present. Their expressions also softened a little. If this old man's guess is correct, Little Friend should have reached some kind of agreement with the Devil Cultivator and the Space Mouse clan, right? Aunt Shuecheong smiled faintly as his gaze swept across the crowd. In the end, his gaze landed on Yi Xian. This old man has a good idea of the situation in the first universe. The Heaven's Legacy race will return sooner or later, and the various slave races should not be in a state of disunity. Otherwise, their fate will be the same. What are the details of the agreement between us? This was clearly asking for details and intending to join the group. Yi Xian had long since had a plan in mind, so he immediately said, "We have formed an alliance." Of course, the name has not been decided yet, because the alliance is currently in a secret state and will not be known to the outside world. And this time, this young master's intention is to give your Hell Ant clan a gold member spot. The so-called gold member represents strength and nobility. A race with a gold member will have a seat in the Alliance Elder Council as a gold elder. Right now, the Alliance already has 4 gold elders. They are the first-generation Demon Emperor, the Mad Mosquito Emperor, the Old Devil Mosquito Butcher, and the Space Mouse Clan's Sector Lord Senior Gene. The races and powers that the 4 of them represent are naturally all gold members. Only the few races that joined the Alliance at the beginning of its establishment will have similar gold members. There will not be more than 9 of them in total. No matter how strong the later races are, they can only become silver members at most. Below the gold members, there are silver members, bronze members, and then the most basic ordinary members. Chapter 38:51. After the alliance grows stronger, everything will be decided by the elders. The 9 gold elders will be the highest existences in the elder group, and this young master will be the chief executive of the alliance, in charge of carrying out the decisions of the elder group. Speaking to here, Yi Xian waved his hand again, taking out 2 small space boxes and handing them to Ant Blood Dome. Inside is a cubic meter of underworld furnace milk and 9-colored meat paste. If Senior Ant agrees to join the alliance, as a gold elder, this will be your personal salary for a year. As for the distribution of benefits, the elders will decide. In the future, the elders will decide on a regular distribution. Ant Blood Dome had been listening attentively. Halfway through, he saw Yi Xian suddenly hand over the resources. His face was clearly startled, and then he took the small space boxes. His face revealed a look of suspicion. He sent his spirit sense into the small space boxes, and his expression changed drastically. He took in a cold breath. See, this thing. He was the same as the Spatial Rat Clan's Sector Lord Golden Rat, an existence of the Sector Lord level. Ordinary heavenly and earthly treasures had almost no effect on his path of evolution. Even the most rare treasures had very weak effects. The milk and meat paste in the 2 small space boxes were emitting an aura that shocked him. Even a Sector Lord would have great use for it, and the effect would definitely be extraordinary. At this time, Yi Xian continued, this underworld furnace milk and 9-colored meat paste is only the salary that the alliance is currently giving to the gold elders. In the future, there will be better things. After all, the underworld furnace milk and 9-colored meat paste, one is the byproduct of the underworld furnace, the other is the raw material of the underworld furnace. They are not the official products of the underworld furnace. The byproduct is already so shocking, and the raw material is condensed from the flesh and blood of ancient life forms above the universe level. It is obvious how high the grade of the final product will be, and how heaven-defying its effects will be. Of course, this young master still doesn't know what the final product of the underworld furnace is. Previously, the alliance of the various races of the second universe suffered great losses, and paid such a huge price in the source of all evil star field, but they didn't get a single drop of milk and meat paste. This young master can get the underworld furnace milk and 9-colored meat paste. The body already explains the problem. At this point, Yi Xian didn't say anything else and patiently waited. On the other hand, the old monster of the Hell Ant race, Blood Sky, played with the 2 small spatial boxes in his hands and fell into deep thought. After a short while, a bright light flashed in Yi Shueqiong's eyes, and then he nodded and said, "All right, my Netherworld Ant clan has decided to join your alliance. At this point, the top 3 slave clans of the first universe had finally formed an alliance. Other than the Sector Lord Old Monsters of the 3 clans, there was also Mad Mosquito Emperor and Old Devil Mosquito Butcher. The alliance had a total of 5 gold elders. In fact, Yi Xian's camp actually had a gold elder that had been secretly appointed. That was the sector master of the origin of all evil's native vicious beast tribe. It was just that he hadn't come out of seclusion yet. However, Yi Xian would reserve the seat for him. When the time came, he would also occupy the seat of a gold-ranked elder in the alliance, and the entire Dire Beast clan behind him would become another gold-ranked member of the alliance. Out of the 9 great gold-ranked members, including the native vicious beast tribe, there were currently 6 of them. Among the members of the alliance who would be lucky enough to become gold-ranked members, there were only 3 spots left. At this moment, as the Netherworld Ant Clan's Sector Lord Old Monster Ant Shueqiong decided to join the alliance, the atmosphere in the hall instantly became harmonious. Everyone drank and chatted merrily as they began to discuss the next target of the crusade. As a member of the alliance, the Netherworld Ant Clan would naturally send out a huge fleet to participate in the crusade. At the same time, at the end of a half-sealed canyon in the depths of the Nether Ant Planet. In the depths of this canyon was the Netherworld Ant Clan's sacred land, the Netherworld Pond. Right now, the Netherworld Ant Clan's universe child Ant Juming, who had just been released by Yi Xian from the farmer god Cauldron, was in the sacred land. The so-called Netherworld Pond was actually the final resting place of the 2 first-generation Netherworld ants. It was located in a cave on the cliff of the canyon. There were 2 such caves in total. At the end of the canyon, they were connected by the cliff on the left and right, one in the east and one in the west. The cave was very big. Looking in from the outside, one would only be able to see a small portion of the Netherworld ancestors' black-armored remains. However, even this small portion was already over 1,000 zhang long. From this, one could see how huge the 2 Netherworld ancestors' remains were. However, the majority of the body was inside the cave. It was impossible to see it, let alone enter it. This was because the 2 Netherworld ancestors' remains in the cave were always burning with black Netherworld flames. Even immortal rank existences were extremely afraid of them. Fortunately, although the black Netherworld flames were always there, they weren't very strong. They only burned on the surface of the 2 Netherworld ancestors' remains. They were only about a foot high and didn't spread out of the cave. At the edge of the cave, a groove was cut into the cliff. It extended all the way to 1,000 zhang below the cliff, forming a small pool. In the 2 small pools, there were more than 10 drops of pure black liquid. They didn't fuse together. Instead, each drop was independent of each other. They were like black crystals, shining brightly. This was the underworld elixir, which was secreted by the first generation of the ancient underworld ants. Even the top-grade underworld ant elixir could not compare to it. They were not the same thing at all. The grade of the underworld elixir was far superior. At this moment, there were no other Hell Ant tribe powerhouses present at the edge of the Netherworld Pond. On the cliff walls on both sides of the canyon, there were many other caves. In the caves closer to the center, there were a few Hell Ant tribe bloodline ancestors. Like the Space Rat tribe, they had universe existences. There were also supreme immortals who surpassed the universe realm. However, these bloodline ancestors hadn't been born yet. In addition, on the cliff walls on both sides of the canyon near the periphery, there were the nests of some important people in the tribe. As the universe Tao child of the tribe, Yi Juming also had a cave here that was used as a nest for secluded cultivation. This time, he returned to the tribe with injuries. The realm lord Old Monster Yi Shueqiong opened his golden mouth and allowed Yi Juming to come to the depths of the Netherworld Pond to take a drop of Netherworld liquid to heal his injuries. Yi Juming was the universe Tao child of the tribe. He came to the Netherworld Pond to take the Netherworld liquid on his own accord. Naturally, no one would stop him. A drop of Netherworld liquid was quickly taken out by him from the left side of the cliff wall. However, at the same time as he took out this drop of ant liquid, Yi Juming also quietly flicked his finger and shot out a weak ray of light, flying straight towards the cave where the corpse of a nether ancestor of his clan was hibernating. In the blink of an eye, this weak light had already rushed into the cave and landed on the Netherworld ancestors' remains. The surface of the remains was steaming with black Netherworld flames. This kind of Netherworld flames could burn all things, but it seemed to be ineffective against this weak light. Chapter 38:52. Boom, an earth-shattering boom of thunder rang out. A wave of flames suddenly surged into the sky from the cave above the Nightmare Cliff. A boundless aura erupted, and even the colossal nether ant planet trembled slightly. In the cave, the enormous ancestor of the underworld's corpse, which was hundreds of thousands of feet tall, originally only had black underworld flames rising from its body. But now, for some reason, the black underworld liquid that was rising from its body suddenly increased. In the blink of an eye, it was already several feet tall, and it was still continuing to increase. This is too big, isn't it? At the same time that the thunderous explosion suddenly erupted, Xu Juming, who was below the nightmare wall, had been shaken to the ground. At this moment, his face was filled with shock. Originally, he just wanted to make a little noise in the nether pool to alarm the people who were discussing in the clan hall and create an opportunity for Yi Xian to enter the nether pool. But the outcome had greatly exceeded Yi Juming's expectations. No matter what, he'd never imagined that the wisp of weak light he shot out with a flick of his finger would actually possess such might. After it entered the Netherworld ancestor's corpse within the cave on the nightmare wall, it actually caused the black nether flames to rise explosively by over 3 m, and it was still rising incessantly. Looking at this movement, the flame wave had already burned out the entrance of the nightmare wall cave. It was obvious that the cave was already a sea of fire. If this continued, even if the nether ancestor's corpse, which was emitting black nether flames from its body, was fine, this nether pool, the ancestral land of the nether pool, would be completely burned down sooner or later. It was fine if a canyon was burned down, but it was the same to change a place as the ancestral land of the nether pool. The key was that in the distant caves, there were still the bloodline ancestors of the Hell Ant clan sleeping in seclusion. They had not come out yet, and could not be easily awakened. If the terrifying black nether flame were to spread to those ancient caves, wouldn't it incinerate all the bloodline patriarchs who were in seclusion? Thinking of this, Yi Juming's face turned green. F***CK. This is the prelude to something bad happening with the nether flame. With this kind of anxious and frightened feeling, he turned around and fled the underworld lake's sacred land. Along the way, he saw many high-ranking members of the clan rushing out of the caves on both sides of the cliff. They were all alarmed by the tremor just now. Yi Juming didn't dare to make a sound. He blended into the crowd and didn't arouse any suspicion. At the same time, in the meeting hall of the Hell Ant clan. This time, the Ant tribe had come to the infernal realm to recruit people. Everything was going too smoothly. They didn't even use a single soldier. In fact, there wasn't even a single unpleasant word between the two sides. The matter was completely settled. This was mainly because of the precedent of the Space Rat clan. At this moment, while both parties were drinking and chatting happily, Yi Xian's heart was in his throat from the beginning to the end. He was worried about the matter with Yi Juming, and he was worried that this kid would be too slow in making a move. At that time, everything that needed to be discussed would be settled, and it wouldn't be good for him to continue staying in the Hell's Ant clan's nest. If that kid Yi Juming only made a move after he left, then no matter how chaotic the situation here was, it would have nothing to do with him. He had wasted a drop of all evil origin liquid for nothing, yet he didn't even have the chance to enter the Hell's Ant clan's underworld lake. That would be too depressing. Right at this moment, the entire hall suddenly shook slightly, and then a world-shaking thunderclap resounded from the distance. Everyone in the hall who was originally raising their cups and chatting was stunned, including Yi Xian. They did it on purpose. Then they turned around and looked towards the outside of the hall. The expressions of the high-ranking members of the Hell Ant clan changed abruptly, and they stood up in shock and cried out involuntarily, "What happened?" Based on the location, the thunderclap actually came from the underworld lake. Even the entire underworld ant star shook slightly. This is absolutely a huge matter. How is this possible? Exactly what happened? Amidst the exclamations, the Hell Ant clan's sector lord Old Monster Yi Shueqiong subconsciously swept his gaze towards Yi Xian, Grand Elder Mo, and the others, and his eyes were filled with suspicion. However, this suspicion quickly dissipated. He was an old monster at the Realm Lord level. Yi Xian and the other three had been waiting right under his nose the entire time. If they wanted to secretly do something, it would be impossible for them to escape his senses. As for Yi Juming, who had left the hall not long ago, Yi Xueqiong didn't suspect him at all. After all, he was a Dao child of his clan, so it was completely impossible. Right at this moment, a group of high-ranking members of the Hell Ant clan rushed into the hall, and all of them had extremely flustered expressions. Before they even entered the hall, cries of alarm had already resounded from their mouths. Ancestor, this is bad. Something has happened to the underworld lake. One of the two skeletons of the netherworld ancestor suddenly erupted in an abnormal state. Black netherworld flames surged, and the sacred cave was already a sea of fire. The netherworld flames even burned out of the cave entrance, and its power is still rising. From the looks of it, it seems like the entire Holy Land will be incinerated. The bloodline ancestors of our clan have yet to be born, so they can't be awakened at all. What? There's actually such a thing? The Sector Lord Old Monster Yi Xueqiong's expression changed once again. When he heard that something had happened to one of the two underworld ancestor skeletons and that the underworld flames had already burned out of the holy cave, he instantly realized the severity of the matter, and his heart sank to the bottom of the valley. Let's go and take a look at the situation. With his heart burning with worry, the Sector Lord Old Monster Yi Xueqiong's figure flashed and had already left the discussion hall. The core members of the Hell Ant clan followed closely behind. Yi Xian, Grand Elder Mo, Grand Elder Mo, Grand Elder Mo, and the Space Rat clan's old monster Shu Qiansui exchanged glances. After hesitating for a moment, they finally followed in the end. Everyone was already allies, and now that such a shocking incident had happened to the Hell Ant clan, it was reasonable for them to follow and see if there was anything they could help with. Very quickly, the group of people arrived at the depths of the Nether Ant planet, the Great Canyon where the Holy Land Nether Pond was located. Around the entrance of the Great Canyon, there were already a large number of experts of the Hell Ant clan watching in fear, including Yi Juming, who was mixed in with the crowd. Although it was called a canyon, in reality, it was two opposite walls that pierced into the sky. They were quite far apart from each other, at least 1,000 kilometers apart. From this, it could be seen how vast the canyon was. At this moment, the entire narrow and vast canyon had long since been thrown into chaos. The caves at the front and middle of the canyon were the seclusion grounds of the upper echelons of the Hell Ant clan that had already emerged. Now, the caves on the left side of the canyon were almost empty, and everyone had escaped. However, at the back of the canyon near the left side of the holy cave, there were still nearly 100 ancient caves. They were still sealed by the power of the formation, and the people sleeping inside were all the upper echelons of the Hell Ant clan that had yet to emerge, as well as the bloodline ancestors. Chapter 38:53. There was an ancient cave more than 2,000 meters away from the left side of the Abyss Wall Holy Cave. There was an immortal rank bloodline ancestor of the Hell Ant clan sleeping inside. Unfortunately, he had yet to be born. The experts of the Hell Ant clan couldn't even enter this ancient cave, let alone awaken the sleeping bloodline ancestor. The situation was basically the same for the hundreds of ancient caves on the left side of the Abyss Wall. The other ancient caves were still a bit far away and wouldn't be threatened by the rolling underworld flames from the left side of the Abyss Wall Holy Cave for the time being. However, this ancient cave only 2,000 meters away was extremely dangerous. The rolling underworld flames from the Abyss Wall Holy Cave were only 200 meters away from this ancient cave. With the momentum of the rising underworld flames from the Abyss Wall Holy Cave, this ancient cave would be enveloped in underworld flames in a short span of a dozen breaths. Then, the other hundreds of ancient caves would follow suit. Unless the rising underworld flames in the Abyss Wall Holy Cave were stopped, but that was obviously not realistic. At least, there were no signs of it happening right now. If the situation really developed to such a state, it would be tantamount to a disaster for the Hell Ant clan. The continuation of the clan's inheritance would face a huge challenge. The bloodline ancestor sleeping in these hundreds of ancient caves was the true foundation of their clan. If they were all destroyed, the Hell Ant clan would probably instantly become a small clan at the bottom of the rankings. They might even be forced to withdraw from the great stage of the first universe's struggle for supremacy. Every Hell Ant clan expert present was aware of the consequences, including Yi Jiuming. At this moment, he was so regretful that his intestines turned green. If he had known that the drop of all evil origin liquid would cause such serious consequences, he definitely wouldn't have done that. Now, he was so scared that his face was pale. Fortunately, the other Hell Ant clan experts around him were the same, so he wasn't afraid of being exposed. In fact, even Yi Xian was a little dumbfounded at this moment. He had given a drop of all evil origin liquid to Yi Jiuming as a test, but he didn't expect it to actually work. Not only did it cause a change, but it also caused the underworld flames to surge. The aura was so terrifying. If he didn't have the farmer god cauldron in his hand, he would probably be shaking his head and smiling bitterly at this moment. Boom! Just as Yi Shueqiong and the other core higher-ups of the Hell Ant clan were like ants on a hot pan, helpless and scratching their ears and cheeks, a loud sound suddenly came from the depths of the canyon in front of them. Everyone's heart jumped at the same time, and their expressions changed again. In just a short while, the underworld flames that were burning in the deepest part of the Saint Cave had finally spread to the ancient cave abode closest to the Saint Cave. The might of the black nether flame was terrifying. As soon as it touched the entrance of the abode, it triggered the restriction. Moreover, it burned the restriction at the first possible moment. The thunderous explosion just now was precisely the sound that came from when the restriction at the entrance of the abode was destroyed. If the underworld flames' ancestor. At the same time, he leaped forward, intending to rush into the canyon and rescue the immortal bloodline ancestor in the ancient cave. The Hell Ant clan's patriarch Tsang Yi and the head clan's old ant tyrant saw that the situation wasn't good. They hurriedly pulled Blood Ant Sky back and tried to persuade him, "Ancestor, you can't go. Even if you attack the restrictions in that cave with all your strength, you're still unable to shake them." Yet now, it was destroyed as soon as it came into contact with the nether flames, and it's sufficient to show the might of this flame. That's right. Even if you go, it would be of no use. Instead, you might even lose your life. Right now, our clan already has a Sector Lord level ancestor. You are the only one. You definitely cannot take the risk. Screech! Right at this moment, a peerlessly miserable and vicious howl suddenly sounded out from within the ancient cave that had the restrictions at the entrance destroyed by the surging nether flames. In a short period of time, the black nether flames that destroyed the restrictions of the cave hadn't covered the entire area. Only half of the area was filled with rolling nether flames. Following the howl, a 300 tall figure charged out from within the ancient cave. He had already reached the cave entrance that was half covered by the nether flames. This was a blood-black Hell Ant warrior. The energy within his body wasn't stable. It was obvious that he had just been forcefully awoken from his slumber. Even so, the energy emitted from his body still far surpassed the Sector Lord Old Monster Ant Shueqiong. An undying supreme being, even if he was forcefully awoken from his slumber, and his strength hadn't recovered. However, he was still far from the Sector Lord level. According to Yi Xian's estimation, this undying supreme being that was awoken from his slumber should have surpassed the Sector Lord level. The level of the universe. The strength of the universe level was already extremely shocking. At least, whether it was the demon race, the space rat race, or the Hell Ant race, none of the bloodline ancestors that had been born were at the universe level. The Sector Lord level was already the strongest. But now, the bloodline ancestor of the Hell Ant clan, who had been born in advance and whose strength had dropped from undying to universe level, was in an extremely difficult situation in the face of the rolling flames that were rushing toward the ancient cave. After all, this kind of flames burst out from the remains of a desolate ancient underworld ant that was close to the level of a primordial great being. Because its power was too strong. Although it did not seal the entire entrance of the ancient cave, it covered more than half of the area, leaving only a gap that was not affected by the netherworld flames. It was only a few 100 feet wide, which was not enough for the huge body of the Hell Ant clan bloodline ancestor to pass through. However, all of this couldn't be delayed any longer. In a few more breaths, the entire entrance of the cave would be sealed by the nether flames. Screech. At the critical moment, the black ant trapped in the cave let out a mournful howl again. Without any hesitation, its body suddenly rushed out, and in the blink of an eye, it was already outside the cave. However, the left half of its black armored body was already contaminated by the nether flames at the entrance of the cave, like a maggot attached to the bone, tightly clinging to it. In less than half a breath, a small part of the black armor melted, revealing the light golden flesh inside. Screech, a third vicious howl sounded out, and it revealed dense unwillingness and resentment. The enormous black ant took advantage of the fact that the nether flames hadn't penetrated its treasured body and hadn't spread out to actually swing its right limb in an extremely decisive manner, and it suddenly chopped down and directly chopped off a small portion of its body on the left. Then, it dragged its weak body, turned into a black arrow, and rushed to the right side of the wall that wasn't affected by the nether flames. With a wave of its hand, it opened up a new cave. After leaving behind a sentence, it dove in and continued to sleep to recover. Chapter 38:54. Boom! A loud bang resounded out once more. The ancient cave that was already completely empty was finally completely swallowed up by the surging nether flames, and even the abode collapsed. The thunderous explosion that resounded out caused all the absent-minded experts outside the gorge to be jolted awake. Following that, there was a large wave of exclamations and gasps that resounded at the entrance of the canyon. In less than 10 breaths of time, an immortal bloodline ancestor of the hellish ant clan was almost burned to death by the nether flames. Although he managed to survive, he was heavily injured. Half of his body was gone. He would need to hibernate for a longer period of time before he could be reborn in peak condition. To the Hell Ant clan, this was definitely a huge loss. Fortunately, it was still within an acceptable range. At least, this immortal rank ancestor didn't die. Juming's face, which was originally as pale as a sheet of paper, seemed to have become a little warmer because of this. If an immortal bloodline ancestor from his clan were to be implicated and killed, it was likely that he would not feel good in his heart. However, after this battle, the experts of the Hell Ant clan outside the canyon had a clearer understanding of the terrifying power of the rolling underworld flames. Even the immortal rank ancestor couldn't withstand it. His hard black ant armor was instantly melted, and the light golden flesh inside could be seen. In the end, he was forced to endure the pain and cut off a small half of his body. Then, with just them, how could they face it? Even the sector lord old monster Shuecheong, who almost rushed into the canyon in a moment of impulse, didn't dare to take another step forward. Thinking back to his impulse just now, he felt a chill down his back and was extremely afraid. If he rushed over at that time, if these black underworld flames touched him, he would probably be burned to ashes on the spot. After all, these were underworld flames that burst out from the remains of an immortal ancestor. This immortal ancestor was the first-generation bloodline descendant of the desolate era almighty Nether Ant. Although the black flames in his body weren't true underworld flames, the difference was really very weak. The power was too terrifying. Hoo! The wind helped the flames, whistling as they rose. In the blink of an eye, the cave dwelling that belonged to this immortal rank bloodline ancestor completely collapsed. Both inside and outside were filled with rolling underworld flames, completely drowned by the sea of flames. At this time, the black nether flames surging out from the cave on the left had reached a terrifying level. The entrance to the cave was no longer visible, drowned in the rolling nether flames. The netherworld flames that had rushed out of the cave had already spread out to a distance of 3,000 meters. The ancient cave that had just collapsed was only 2,000 meters away from the entrance of the holy cave. In the blink of an eye, the entrance was no longer visible as it was engulfed by the waves of underworld flames. Looking at the way it was spreading, not only was the power of the underworld flames still increasing, but its speed seemed to be increasing as well. If this continued, the fire would spread faster and faster, and in the end, the entire canyon would be turned into a sea of black flames. Even the nightmare wall on the right, which was thousands of miles away, was no longer safe. If it really developed to that extent, the holy cave on the right side of the abyss cliff would also be affected. At that time, the netherworld flames in the two holy caves would erupt, and the entire vast canyon would be completely destroyed. Along with it, the foundation of the Hell Ant clan, and the hope of the clan's future would also be destroyed. Perhaps it would still take some time for the netherworld flames to develop to that extent. However, if they were helpless in the initial stage of the fire, what could they do when the fire spread completely? Moreover, there was a new danger that was about to befall them. About 4,000 meters away from the back section of the Abyss Cliff Holy Cave on the left side, there were 3 ancient caves from bottom to top. The immortal rank ancestors of the Hell Ant race were all hibernating in these 3 caves. Right now, the rolling nether flames that were spreading from the Holy Cave were only about 1,000 meters away from these 3 ancient caves. Judging from the way the nether flames were spreading, these 3 ancient caves would be completely covered in the time it took to drink a cup of tea. This time, they definitely wouldn't be as lucky as last time. Even if only one of the 3 slumbering imperishable old ancestors died, it was still a huge blow to the Hell Ant tribe that was absolutely unbearable. This can't go on. The back area of the left side of the Abyss Cliff has 40 ancient caves, all of them are Sector Lord level upper echelons and bloodline ancestors. If we allow the nether flames to continue spreading, our Hell Ant clan's losses will be too great. While still in shock, the Hell Ant clan's Sector Lord Old Monster Yi Shueqiong's expression sunk again. He muttered to himself, "No, we have to think of a way. We have to at least stop the spreading of the nether flames and then find a way to force the nether flames back to the left holy cave." Indeed, they had to force the nether flames back to the left holy cave. Otherwise, the one drop of nether liquid would be completely wasted. The entire cave entrance was already covered in nether flames and couldn't be approached at all. How could they collect the nether liquid? However, this was easy to say but not so easy to do. While Yi Shueqiong was muttering to himself, the Hell Ant clan's patriarch Yi Tsang and elder Yi Ba were all looking at each other. They couldn't think of a way to solve this problem and couldn't help but sigh bitterly. The power of the underworld flame is too terrifying. Even the ant armor of the immortal realm old ancestor couldn't withstand it and was melted in an instant. Judging from this power, it would take at least a primordial supreme treasure to enter. And it can't be an ordinary desolate level treasure. I'm afraid it has to be at the level of a desolate level treasure. For example, a nether furnace or N. Right, doesn't young Master Linghu have a Shinong cauldron? That's right, we can ask young Master Linghu for help. At least we can try. If it really doesn't work, then there's no other way. This is fate. Following these discussions, Yi Xian's heart shook and he almost couldn't hold back his laughter. At this moment, he was still thinking of how to open his mouth without arousing suspicion. He didn't expect that before he could think of a way to open his mouth, the other party would suddenly come knocking on his door. This was simply too perfect. Little friend Linghu, this matter concerns the entire foundation of my Hell Ant clan. It's not a small matter. Please help us. Just as he was muttering in his heart, the Hell Ant clan's Sector Lord Yi Shueqiong was alerted by the discussions and his eyes suddenly lit up. He turned to look at Yi Xian. There was even a hint of pleading in his tone. Young friend, you and I are allies now. Although this nether flame is indeed terrifying, among all of us, you are the only one who possesses a primordial treasure of the ancients. Chapter 38:55. At this moment, everyone's gazes converged on Yi Xian. The power of the farmer god cauldron in young Master Linghu's hand was well known. It was said that even a realm lord could not force his way out if he was trapped inside. Although this had not been proven, not long ago, this cauldron had indeed trapped hundreds of millions of experts from various races in the 3 dimensions. Among them were 8 realm lords. Even the combined attack of 8 realm lords could not break through the power of this cauldron's inner domain. It was obvious how terrifying this cauldron's power was. In fact, the farmer god cauldron had shone brightly in the source of all evil star domain. Young Master Linghu stood on top of the cauldron, his body shrouded by the 9-colored fog. Even the pressure of the realm lords could not affect him in the slightest. Later on, he relied on this cauldron to rescue millions of battleships from various races and millions of native ferocious beasts. From this point of view, it was not entirely impossible for the farmer god cauldron to resist the power of the underworld flames. This isn't too good, right? Although he was overjoyed, Yi Xian did not show it on his face. Instead, a troubled expression appeared on his face as he tactfully declined. The canyon ahead is the holy land of your race. Although this young master and your race are allies now, it is not easy to enter a place like the holy land of a race. In addition, if we want to investigate the cause of the underworld flames, we have to get close to the entrance of the holy cave. There is the remains of a noble race's underworld ancestor inside. If it was any other time, it would be fine, but now the entire area is shrouded in black flames. It is difficult to see clearly. This young master's farmer god cauldron is a precious artifact. If we accidentally knock into it and break the remains of the noble race's underworld ancestor, that would be a great sin. After all, Yi Xian was well aware that as long as he took out the Shenong cauldron and entered, the remains of the nether ancestor in the sacred cave on the left side of the cave would definitely not be left behind. He would be kept in the Shenong cauldron, and at that time, he would refuse to admit it no matter what. After all, Yi Xian was well aware that as long as he took out the Shenong cauldron and entered, the remains of the nether ancestor in the sacred cave on the left side of the cauldron would definitely not be left behind. He would claim that the remains had spontaneously combusted and that it was burned clean. However, this matter had to be mentally prepared in advance. Otherwise, it would have a bad effect on the alliance that had just been formed. Unfortunately, no one had thought of this plan, except for the Tao child of the Hell Ants, Yi Jiuming. To the core higher-ups of the Hell Ants, including the Realm Lord Old Monster Yi Shueqiong, Yi Xian was clearly making excuses. Although it sounded good, it was actually because he was afraid that the underworld flames would be too strong and damage the farmer god cauldron in his hands. If it were any other time, all of the higher-ups of the ant race of hell present here were not shameless people, so they naturally wouldn't continue to insist. However, the current crisis had to be resolved. No matter how important it was, as long as there was a glimmer of hope, they had to fight for it. Thinking of this, the Realm Lord Old Monster Yi Shueqiong made up his mind and gritted his teeth. Little friend, just give it a try. If the giant cauldron cannot withstand the power of the underworld flames, this matter will naturally be dropped. Otherwise, if it can withstand it, I hope that little friend will lend a hand. At this point, a bitter smile appeared on Yi Shueqiong's face. He shook his head and said, in fact, the underworld ancestors' remains in the holy cave on the left side of the cliff wall suddenly had such a change. Even if little friend is careful not to touch it, I'm afraid we won't be able to protect it. The top priority is to protect the dozens of ancient caves on the left side of the cliff wall. We can't let the underworld flames continue to spread. Otherwise, my clan will be in danger. So it's like that. The other party had already said so much. If he still didn't agree, it would really affect the alliance that had just been established. Yi Xian didn't plan to continue to make things difficult, and a difficult expression appeared on his face. In the end, he sighed helplessly. All right, no matter what, this young master and the Hell Ants are already allies. The crisis in front of us is indeed not a small matter. Who asked me to have the farmer god cauldron in my hands? Since Senior has already said so much, if I don't lend a hand, I will lose face. However, I have to make things clear first. The power of the underworld flames is too terrifying. This young master can only take out the farmer god cauldron and try to see if it can withstand it. If it can't withstand it, even if the giant cauldron is slightly damaged, I will definitely not agree to this. Senior also knows that this farmer god cauldron can help me through several times. To help me get through this life and death crisis, to this young master, it can't be lost. Of course. Hearing that Yi Xian was willing to help, the Realm Master Old Monster Ant Blood Dome heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly agreed. Then, he looked at Yi Xian anxiously and didn't say anything, waiting for him to immediately take out the heavy cauldron and try it out. In just a short while, the underworld flames at the back of the canyon had spread by a large amount. They were only 300 to 400 meters away from the 3 rows of ancient caves. Time was too tight. Swish. Yi Xian did not delay any longer. He immediately waved his hand and took out the farmer god cauldron, keeping it at a size of 300 meters. He stepped into it and stood on top of the cauldron, protected by the 9-colored mist. Then, he controlled the giant cauldron beneath his feet and slowly moved towards the depths of the canyon. In the blink of an eye, he had already arrived at the edge of the area where the underworld flames were surging. Although Yi Xian was confident in the farmer god cauldron, because the cauldron itself contained a 9-colored strange flame, its power definitely surpassed this kind of black underworld flame. However, after all, the power of the farmer god cauldron was restricted by Yi Xian's own strength. Currently, it was far from being fully activated, and the farmer god cauldron had only grown to a 3-colored flame. Therefore, even Yi Xian was somewhat nervous at this moment. However, reality quickly proved that his nervousness was unnecessary. After reaching the edge of the black underworld flame area, Yi Xian immediately let one side of the giant cauldron come into contact with a small plume of underworld flame. Even the 9-colored mist released a strand of underworld flame to test the power of the underworld flame. In the end, there was no reaction. As expected, the black underworld flame was unable to shake the farmer god cauldron at all. Seeing this scene, the entrance of the canyon in the distance immediately erupted with thunderous cheers. The core members of the Hell Ant clan waiting at the front of the canyon all heaved a sigh of relief. At least now they saw hope. As long as they could enter the holy cave on the left side of the cliff and investigate the reason for the explosion of the underworld flame, they would have a chance to find a solution. Thinking of this, the realm master old monster ant Xue Qiong smiled and cupped his fists towards Yi Xian from afar. He said in a clear voice, "Thank you, little friend, for your help." Chapter 38:56. The underworld flames could even burn divine sense, so after entering the sea of flames, no one could investigate the situation of the farmer god cauldron, not even the sector lord level hell ant. Therefore, Yi Xian didn't pretend anymore. Instead, he activated the farmer god cauldron at extreme speed. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of the holy cauldron on the left and charged in. Amidst the rolling netherworld flames, a humongous giant ant that was 10,000 feet tall entered his sight. The entire holy cavern was filled with black netherworld flames, and these netherworld flames were surging out from this netherworld ancestor's remains. This was also the result of Yi Xian's deduction using the devouring system in his body. Yi Xian had already come into contact with the Hell Ant elixir, and the devouring system had also analyzed it, leaving behind comprehensive data. Therefore, when Yi Xian ordered the devouring system to find a resource that could cause the underworld flames on the surface of a high-grade hell ant to erupt in a small area, the system's deduction was made. The result was the all-evil elixir. However, it didn't say how much to use, so Yi Xian naturally gave the heaven and earth Dao child ant Juming a drop. Now, it seemed that this was too much. Half a drop would be enough, and the commotion it caused would be enough to alarm the entire hell ant tribe. Fortunately, there wasn't any unforeseen accident, or else Yi Xian wouldn't even have a place to cry. The holy cauldron was big enough. Yi Xian activated the farmer god cauldron under his feet, causing it to expand to more than 100,000 feet. Then, a huge cloud of 9-colored fog surged out, sucking the underworld ancestors' remains into the farmer god cauldron. It was directly sent to the storage area at the bottom of the volcano in the central region. This way, even if the underworld ancestors' remains were still surging with underworld flames, it was in an independent cauldron, and the underworld flames couldn't burn it out, so there wouldn't be any other damage. At this moment, as the underworld ancestors' remains were taken away, the rolling underworld flames that had been spreading out in the second half of the vast canyon immediately stopped spreading. After all of the black underworld flames had surged out from the remains of the ancestor of the underworld. Now that the source had been taken away, even if the underworld flames that had spread out still existed, their momentum had been completely cut off. It was impossible for them to continue spreading. At this moment, the black underworld flames that were spreading out from the holy cauldron were only 100 meters away from the 3 ancient cauldrons that were lined up in a row. But he stopped the spread of the underworld flames directly. My brother is amazing. Fortunately, young Master Linghu suddenly visited our clan this time. Otherwise, I'm afraid our ancestral land would not be safe today. The power of the underworld flames is too terrifying. Fortunately, although the underworld flames still exist, at least they are no longer dangerous to the dozens of ancient cauldrons on the left side. There will be a way to get rid of them later. It's a close call. Fortunately, the crisis this time is finally over. As these exclamations sounded, the core members of the Hell Ant clan standing in the front area of the canyon all heaved a long sigh of relief, and their hearts that were in their throats were half relieved. Only Grandpa Mo Qigong, and the head of the spatial rat clan, Mouse Chensui, looked at each other with worried expressions on their faces. Yi Xian had just entered, but the underworld flames that had been spreading and spreading fiercely suddenly stopped spreading. This truly caused them to they were worried. They were afraid that Yi Xian had encountered some kind of accident inside. The three of you don't need to worry. Little friend Linghu should be fine. The Hell Ant clan's sector lord old monster Yi Shueqiong smiled faintly. He turned to look at Grand Elder Mo and the other two and comforted them. You saw it just now. Little friend's farmer god Heavy Cauldron is not afraid of the underworld flames at all. With the cauldron's protection, there should be no problem in terms of safety. If I'm not mistaken, the reason why the underworld flame has stopped spreading should be because my little friend discovered the problem. Furthermore, with the help of the farmer god's Heavy Cauldron's power, he has resolved the problem. Therefore, according to my guess, my little friend Linghu should be coming out soon. Saying this, Yi Shueqiong stroked his beard and laughed happily. Ha ha ha, it seems that this time, the heavens are really blessing my Hell Ant clan. If you didn't coincidentally come to my clan, I'm afraid it would be very difficult for my clan to survive this crisis. Little friend Linghu has the most credit for this matter. This old man will definitely reward you greatly later. Grandpa Mo and the other two looked at each other and could only bitterly smile as they dealt with it. However, their gazes were locked onto the area of the underworld flame that had stopped expanding. They eagerly awaited Yi Xian's return as soon as possible. Black underworld flames area, inside the holy cauldron on the left side of the wall. Under Yi Xian's control, the farmer god cauldron had shrunk again. This time, it was only about 30 meters in size. He had originally planned to leave immediately, but considering that he had only been here for a short time, he decided to dawdle for a while. In his boredom, Yi Xian's attention was attracted by the black underworld flames rolling like waves inside the holy cauldron. His heart suddenly moved. These black flames that were close to true underworld flames were clearly extraordinary. Although they couldn't compare to the farmer god heavenly flames, what if the farmer god heavenly flames absorbed them? Was it possible to directly upgrade the farmer god heavenly flames from the current 3-colored flames to 4-colored flames? As soon as this idea appeared, Yi Xian's spirit was greatly roused. Without hesitation, he immediately took action. Regardless of whether this idea of 4-colored flames was feasible or not, at least these underworld flames would be useful in the end. Moreover, the farmer god cauldron could completely absorb them. Of course, even if it wanted to absorb them, it couldn't absorb all the black underworld flames in the canyon. If it did that, the experts of the Hell Ant clan outside the entrance of the canyon could immediately enter the back of the canyon to check the situation. The excuse Yi Xian had thought of was that when he entered the sea of black flames and approached the entrance of the holy cauldron, he found that only a small part of the underworld ancestor's body was left. The other parts had all turned into rolling underworld flames. Chapter 3857. Apart from the fact that it would take some time to burn the remains of the ancestor of the underworld, Yi Xian would also need some time to destroy the remaining remains of the ancestor of the underworld with the help of the farmer god cauldron and stop the spreading of the underworld flame. Apart from time, he also needed to make some noise. Then I'll just have to stay in this sea of underworld flame for half a day. I'll collect the underworld flame and make some noise. Yi Xian grinned as he muttered to himself, at least I have to let the people outside know that I didn't do nothing after I came in. I've put in a lot of effort to help the Hell Ant tribe. Thinking like this, Yi Xian immediately activated the power of the Shenong cauldron. With the dense 9-colored fog at the mouth of the cauldron, he condensed it into a huge fist and fiercely smashed it towards the wall of the holy cave. Rumble, a loud rumbling sound rang out as the entire second half of the canyon trembled slightly. Although the walls of the Saint Cave were special, after being burned by the underworld flames for countless years, they had long been purified. It was as if they had been refined into magic treasures, leaving behind only the toughest essence. However, with this punch, a corner of the wall on one side of the Saint Cavern still crumbled. The commotion was sufficient. Yi Xian nodded in satisfaction. Then, he left the attack and activated the power of the farmer god cauldron to collect the black underworld flame in the holy cave. After the underworld flame was collected into the farmer god cauldron, it was directly sent to another sealed cave at the bottom of the volcano in the central region. Its power did not spread out. After a while, Yi Xian stopped collecting the underworld flame. He used the 9-colored fog at the mouth of the cauldron to form a fist and smashed it towards the wall of the holy cave. Once again, a loud noise was heard and rocks rolled down the wall. Then, he stopped and continued to collect the underworld flame. Just like this, Yi Xian controlled the power of the Shenong cauldron. He condensed a fist imprint and smashed it into the mountain wall, then collected the underworld flame. He was extremely busy, and time slowly passed as he repeated this process. Outside the entrance of the canyon, there was already an uproar. Not long ago, the underworld flames that had been continuously spreading outwards finally stopped spreading, causing everyone to heave a sigh of relief. However, immediately after, the underworld flames still surged in front of them, but in the depths of the sea of black flames that had stopped spreading outwards, a huge trembling sound rang out. This rumble was very sudden, causing everyone to be greatly surprised. What was even worse was that this wasn't the only rumble. Every few breaths of time, another rumble would ring out, causing the hearts of the experts waiting outside the canyon to pound. As they looked at each other, their expressions became more and more anxious. They didn't know what was happening near the Saint Cave in the depths of the Sea of Flames. Fortunately, during this process, young Master Linghu had successfully stopped the underworld flame from spreading. It could be said that this was a great fortune amidst all the misfortune. It wasn't until half a day later that a huge rumble rang out every 10 breaths of time that it finally stopped. Everyone once again heaved a sigh of relief. They all raised their heads in the depths of the canyon that was still surging with flames, anticipating the return of young Master Linghu. Especially Grandpa Mo and the other two. At this moment, they were already burning with anxiety. On the side, several higher-ups of the Hell Ant clan were repeatedly comforting them. At the same time, outside the Saint Cave on the left side of the canyon, Yi Xian was still standing at the mouth of the farmer god cauldron. The dense 9-colored fog protected his body, preventing the black underworld flames in the surrounding void from invading him. Now, he had already stopped bombarding the Saint Cave on the left side of the mountain. A large area of the entrance of the Saint Cave had already collapsed. It was completely enough for him to act to this extent. As for the ocean-like underworld flames in the Saint Cave, they had long been collected by Yi Xian with the farmer god cauldron. Now, only the void outside the Saint Cave was left with black underworld flames that shrouded about 3,000 meters in diameter. Yi Xian had no intention of collecting the underworld flames outside the Saint Cave at all. Letting them burn in the outside world would give the Hell Ant clan a headache for a while. However, this problem would definitely be solved in the end. However, that would probably be at least a matter of a few days. Such a long time would be enough for the underworld ancestors' remains in the Saint Cave to be completely burned. At that time, even if the higher-ups of the Hell Ant clan who were outside the canyon entered the Saint Cave and did not see any remains, they should not be suspicious anymore. As for walking out of the underworld flames area, Yi Xian planned to wait a little longer. Taking advantage of this time, he could try to see if he could use the underworld flames to fuse with the underworld flames to upgrade the farmer god cauldron's 3-colored flames to the level of 4-colored flames. Soon, Yi Xian entered the farmer god cauldron and appeared in the space inside the cauldron. At the Central Territory's volcanic area, the primeval porcupine and primeval tortoise led the millions of native ferocious beasts that were the source of all evil. They were still within the cauldron, and some of them were at the periphery of the Central Territory's volcanoes and were relying on the pillars of flames around the volcanoes to roast their meat. The 8 guardian deities had become familiar with these native ferocious beasts since a long time ago. At this moment, they were respectively staying by the side of the 2 region lords, and they were trying their best to curry favor with them. Fellow ferocious beasts, stop for a moment after you're done roasting the meat in your hands. This young master has some proper business to attend to. Yi Xian had no choice but to show himself and call out to them. Besides that, this matter might be slightly dangerous. So, it's best that all my fellow ferocious beasts retreat to a slightly further area. After a short while, all the native ferocious beasts had retreated from the Central Territory's volcanoes under the command of the primeval porcupine and primeval tortoise, and they lay dormant in the mountain ranges in the surroundings while eagerly paying attention to the developments here. The Saint Cave was extremely vast. When Yi Xian entered, the space within the cave was completely filled with surging nether flames, and it was like an ocean of flames. On the other hand, all of these black nether flames that were enormous like an ocean had been placed within the farmer god cauldron, and he'd opened up an independent sealed-off cave at the bottom of the Central Territory's volcanoes to store them. Now, all he had to do was guide these black nether flames into the central pool of flames at the bottom of the Central Territory's volcanoes. He hoped that he could facilitate them to fuse into the farmer god tricolored flames and complete the advancement of the farmer god flames from the tricolored flames to the quad-colored flames. The entire process progressed very quickly. After all, the independent cave where these black nether flames were stored was at the bottom of the Central Territory's volcanoes. With just a thought, Yi Xian activated the internal domain of the farmer god cauldron and guided all of them into the central pool of flames at the bottom of the Central Territory's volcanoes. In just a short minute or so, all of the black nether flames in the independent cave had been guided into the central pool of flames at the bottom of the Central Territory's volcanoes. Rumble. From this moment on, a series of muffled thunderous sounds began to appear, and the power of the flames in the central pool of flames instantly increased. The majestic tricolored flames that were as vast as the sea and the slightly smaller amount of black nether flames began to fuse with each other, appearing and disappearing from time to time. At this moment, Yi Xian's heart was in his throat. He was deeply afraid that the fusion this time would fail. If that happened, it would definitely be a huge blow to him. Chapter 38:58. Ding, congratulations to the host, the level of the Shenong Strange Flame has increased. Current level, 4-colored flame. Ding, congratulations to the host, the level of the physical body's qi and blood has increased. Current level, 3rd-order cosmic light. As the familiar system prompt sounded in his mind, Yi Xian immediately fell into a daze. What's going on? The Shenong Strange Flame had leveled up, from the previous 3-colored flame to the current 4-colored flame. This was something that was expected, but his physical body realm had also increased by a small level. What was going on? After thinking for a while, Yi Xian couldn't find an answer, and felt a little confused. In the end, he could only attribute this matter to the frequent use of the Shenong Cauldron's power this time. Just bombarding the sacred cave in the back of the canyon took a long time, and it might be that his physical body's qi and blood had been completely activated. Some of the heavenly materials and earthly treasures that remained in his body had been completely absorbed. However, this was a good thing. What was important was the result, so there was no need to get to the bottom of it. After putting this matter aside, Yi Xian's attention quickly shifted to the Shenong Strange Flame in the central flame pool at the bottom of the volcano in the central region. With a thought, tens of thousands of Shenong Strange Flames of different sizes rushed out from the flame pillar channel he had opened at the edge of the volcano in the central region, instantly illuminating the vast space inside the cauldron with incomparable brilliance. Compared to the previous 3-colored flame, the current Shenong Strange Flame had an additional touch of black. This was the color of the nether flame. Although it was black, the current strange flame had an additional color after all. The degree of brilliance was by no means comparable to before, causing people to be dazzled. Aoo! Screech, as these tens of thousands of 4-colored flame pillars of varying sizes rushed out from the edge of the volcano in the central region. In the distant mountains at the edge of the volcano, there were instantly cheerful roars and howls of fierce beasts. All the indigenous fierce beasts were paying close attention to the progress of the volcano in the central region. Seeing that Yi Xian had upgraded the original 3-colored flame to the current 4-colored flame in a short period of time, they were all overjoyed. They had been roasting meat in the internal space of the Shenong Cauldron for a long time, so they had a deep understanding of the mysterious power of the Shenong tricolor flame. Just the tricolor flame alone was able to roast ordinary meat into a meat medicine. Now that the exotic flame had advanced again, from the tricolor flame to the current quadruple flame, its power had obviously increased as well. For the local ferocious beasts who could roast meat with the Shenong flames of the central domain's volcanoes, they were obviously the direct beneficiaries of the improvement of the level of the flames. How could they not be overjoyed? Amidst the cheering, a large number of native beasts in the rolling mountain range in the distance, under the lead of the primordial porcupine and primordial tortoise, all rushed towards the volcano in the central region. Some of the ferocious beasts were still on the way, but they had already taken out large and small amounts of fresh meat from their storage treasures in a panic. The Shinong flames had successfully advanced, and they couldn't wait to personally experience the magical colors of this four-colored flame. They wanted to taste the meat roasted with it and see how delicious it was and how powerful its effect was. Yi Xian was still thinking about the things in the canyon outside the cauldron, so he didn't want to stay any longer. Seeing that all the native beasts were swarming over, he left the space inside the cauldron. When he arrived at the outside world, the billowing flames in the void outside the holy cave were still there. It was quiet all around, and no one had entered during this period. Yi Xian had only entered the internal space of the Shinong cauldron in the time it took to eat a meal. Counting carefully, it had been nearly half a day since he first entered this sea of flames. He didn't waste any more time and immediately activated the Shinong cauldron, rushing towards the front of the canyon at the edge of the sea of flames. Very quickly, he rushed out of the black sea of flames and appeared in the vision of the experts who had been waiting at the front of the canyon and the entrance. At this moment, Grandpa Mo Qigong, and the chief of the Space Rat clan, Shu Qian Sui, all let out a sigh of relief. If something really happened to Yi Xian this time, it would be difficult to clean up the aftermath. The newly formed alliance would most likely collapse very quickly. After all, without his existence, the 5-sector Lord-level Gold Elders who had already entered the alliance would most likely not be able to gather into a single force. Similarly, the upper echelons of the Hell Ant clan also let out a sigh of relief. If Yi Xian met with misfortune in the Hell Ant clan this time, they would also be unable to escape responsibility and would most likely immediately start a war. With smiles on their faces, the group of experts all rushed forward to welcome him. A tired expression appeared on Yi Xian's face as he waved his hand and stored the Shinong cauldron into his body. Then, he cupped his fists towards the core members of the Hell Ant clan. Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. In the end, I still managed to resolve this crisis, but, sigh, the remains of the noble Nether ancestor were not left behind. Today, only a few fragments of the remains remain. Because there are still black flames rising from them, I was unable to bring them out. Hearing this, the core members of the Hell Ant clan were all startled. Then, they asked about the situation inside the Saint Cave. Yi Xian followed the explanation that he had already thought of before and narrated it flawlessly. In the end, he said, out of helplessness, this young master could only activate the power of the Shinong cauldron and launch another bombardment. In the end, it took half a day before I finally shattered half of the noble Nether ancestors' remains and completely disintegrated them. The aftermath of the Nether flame. After that, I waited inside for a period of time until the fragments of the remains were almost burnt. After confirming that there would be no more accidents, I left. The core members of the Hell Ant clan did not doubt Yi Xian's explanation. After all, everything was reasonable. Moreover, they had indeed heard a loud rumbling sound that lasted for half a day. Everything happened to corroborate each other. There was no discrepancy. Sigh, it is indeed a pity. However, this old man had already expected this. The 2 Nether ancestors' remains of our clan have existed for countless years, and there is not much energy left in their bodies. This time, due to some unforeseen event, the Nether ancestors' remains in the left side of the abyss wall holy cave burst out with such a large amount of nether flame. Under such circumstances, it would be unreasonable if the Nether ancestors' remains could continue to be preserved. After all, energy is conserved. When the water runs out, the source will naturally run out. It's a pity that our clan will lose a source of nether liquid from now on. This kind of resource cannot be found anywhere else in the world. It's really a pity. Chapter 38:59. In a short period of a single day, the matter with the Hellish Ant clan had been resolved perfectly. Not only had he succeeded in forming an alliance with the Hellish Ant clan, but he'd even sent the Universe Daoist child of the Hellish Ant clan who'd surrendered to Yi Xian back to the Hellish Ant clan as a spy. Moreover, Yi Xian had even obtained the remains of a first-generation nether ant that was almost at the level of a great figure from the primordial era. Besides that, his own cultivation had broken through to the third rank of the cosmic realm in one go, and it was even to the extent that the farmer god Cauldron's three-colored flames had advanced once more to become four-colored flames that possessed formidable might. Compared to all of this, in order to thank Yi Xian for his help, the 100 drops of underworld liquid and the 100 drops of hellish ant liquid that were secreted from his own body, which was the hellish ant liquid secreted by the sector lord level hellish ant, seemed a little insignificant. In fact, merely these 100 drops of nether elixir and 100 drops of high-grade hellish ant elixir were priceless in the outside world, and they were priceless. In short, Yi Xian hadn't mobilized a single soldier during his trip to the hellish ant clan, yet his gains were so great that even he hadn't expected it. It was simply an enormous pleasant surprise. After staying in the hellish ant clan for a day, the subjugation army set out once more. Besides the army of 10 million battleships and 4 million troops from the Spatial Mouse clan, the hellish ant clan had gathered an army of almost 4 million this time. At the same time, they dispatched their head elder, Ant Ba, who was at the region lord realm to command their fleet. At this point, the allied army of the three clans had arrived at almost 20 million battleships, and there were even 2 region lords amongst them. As for the next target, Yi Xian pondered deeply for a moment before he decided to attack the ferocious ant clan. On one hand, the universe Daoist of the ferocious ant clan really should be sent back to his clan because he was a spy that would definitely be of great use in the future. On the other hand, amongst the 9 gold members of the alliance, 5 had already arrived while the 6th had already been decided, and it belonged to the native ferocious beast clan. There were only 3 gold member slots left. Since he already had a spy in the giant ferocious tribe, then no matter what, he had to get a gold member for the tribe. As for who the final 2 gold members would end up in, Yi Xian did not care. He did not care at all. However, this time, Yi Xian didn't plan to personally lead the expedition against the giant ferocious tribe. Although his departure represented the loss of a powerful force, after all, the entire native ferocious beast race was in the farmer god Cauldron, including the 2 old monsters, the primordial porcupine and the primordial hairy tortoise. If Yi Xian did not go, the native ferocious beasts would not participate in the subsequent expeditions. But now, the expedition army was close to 20 million, and there were 2 powerful old monsters at the domain lord level. They should be able to deal with the other races that weren't in the top 3 of the first universe. Whether or not Yi Xian personally went into battle with the army did not matter anymore. He had more important things to deal with, and that was the root of all evil. Ever since they had left the star field of the root of all evil, none of the top forces of the 3 universes had entered that star field. They hadn't even sent out a single scout. They were really scared. The 2 old monsters at the domain lord level of the native ferocious beasts were killed in a single round. This was absolutely terrifying. The top powers of the 3 universes still had lingering fear in their hearts. They hadn't recovered from their shock yet and didn't dare to go over. However, Yi Xian was different. He was still worried about this matter and felt uneasy. He had to personally make a trip. The day after the decision was made, Yi Xian handed Meng Moshan, the universe Dao child of the giant ferocious tribe, to Grandpa Mo, and left by himself. Half a day later, a terrifying army of close to 20 million warships of various types set off from the underworld ant star field where the Hell Ant tribe was located. They set off for the giant ferocious star field where the giant ferocious tribe was located. When the news spread, all the races of the first universe were in an uproar. The demon tribe, the space rat tribe, and the Hell Ant tribe were the top 3 races of the first universe. They were very powerful, and now they had joined forces and gathered an army of close to 20 million warships to set off against the giant ferocious tribe. This was clearly to conquer the entire first universe and trample on the other races. The rhythm of their footsteps. The Tianji tribe's position as the overlord of the first universe had just been ended, and now the demon tribe had come. This was absolutely intolerable for the other races. Even if the new overlord was not the demon tribe alone, but was jointly controlled by the demon tribe, the space rat tribe, and the Hell Ant tribe. However, to the other slaves of the first universe, there was almost no difference. No matter what kind of agreement the demon tribe, the space rat tribe, and the hell ant tribe had reached, once all the races of the first universe were subdued by the army of these three races, only these three races would be the ones to truly control the power. No other race could be on equal footing with them. The status of the top three races of the first universe was not on the same level as the other slave races. Just this point alone was destined to be the general trend once the entire first universe was unified again. The demon tribe, the space rat tribe, and the hell ant tribe would be in charge, and all the other weaker races would be enslaved again. Such a situation was obviously unacceptable to the other slave races. If it was said that young Master Ling Hu had joined forces with the demon tribe to build an army of tens of millions of warships and set off to suppress the space rat tribe, the races of the first universe did not take it seriously. They always felt that even if the sky collapsed, there was still a head to hold it up. With the space rat tribe and the hell ant tribe in front of them, they did not have to worry about it at all. They did not have to worry about this so-called alliance army of tens of millions. Then, with the space rat tribe and the hell ant tribe being incorporated or pulled into the alliance by the demon tribe, the top three races of the first universe were completely twisted into a force. At this time, the other higher-ups of the slave races finally panicked. For a time, as the alliance army of the three races of nearly 20 million warships set off from the hell ant tribe's nest in the nether ant star field, the other slave races of the first universe made a sound one after another, calling for the other races to unite and resist the alliance army of the three races together. The demon tribe, the space rat tribe, and the hell ant tribe were indeed powerful. It was not an undeserved reputation to be known as the top three races of the first universe. Not to mention the alliance army of the three races, even if the army of any of the three races led a crusade against any of the slave races other than the top three, there was almost no possibility of defeat. However, if all the other slave races in the first universe, except for the top three races, were to gather together and work together to fight against the foreign enemy, then it would be a different story. There were thousands of slave races of various sizes in the first universe. The weak ones might only have one administrative planet, and the strong ones' overall combat power was not too far away from the top three races, such as the giant ferocious tribe.